Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes, endless forests, and bitter cold winters that silence the land in sheets of snow. But beneath the surface of beauty and wilderness lies something else, something darker. Whispers of tragedy, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, lights flickering in the dead of night, and shadows that don't belong. This is not just a state of scenic hikes and family cabins. It is a state with scars, abandoned hospitals where the suffering never left, historic mansions where their owners refuse to stop roaming, lonely stretches of road where hitchhikers vanish without a trace. Minnesota is haunted not only by history, but by the people who lived, died, and refused to let go. Tonight, we journey into its heart, from forgotten asylums to ghostly theaters, cursed cemeteries to chilling lake shores. We'll explore the 25 most haunted places in Minnesota, each one with its own legend, its own restless spirit, and its own story that will crawl under your skin and stay there long after the lights go out. So dim the lights, lock the doors, and if you hear a knock on your window while listening, don't answer it. Carved deep into the sandstone bluffs along the Mississippi River in St. Paul, the Wabasha Street caves carry with them a history that refuses to stay buried. They were first hollowed out in the 1800s, originally mining tunnels created to extract sandstone for construction. But what began as practical labor soon became a stage for more shadowy purposes. Over the decades, these caves transformed, their walls absorbing not just sweat and dust, but also music, laughter, whispers of deals in the dark, and the echoes of violence. By the 1930s, during the height of Prohibition, the caves had been reborn as speakeasies and nightclubs. Hidden from the prying eyes of the law, they became sanctuaries for bootleggers, gangsters, and their glamorous companions. Names like John Dillinger and Ma Barker are rumored to have stepped through those heavy doors. Drawn by the secrecy of the underground club and the chance to revel in a world outside the reach of Prohibition agents, the music of jazz bands filled the air, and the caves pulsed with life smoke rising from cigars, crystal glasses clinking, and the shuffle of dancing feet echoing against sandstone walls. But where gangsters gathered, violence was never far behind. Stories passed down through the decades tell of rivalries erupting into bloodshed, and of figures who never left the caves alive. According to local lore, more than one execution was carried out in those dimly lit back rooms, and the sandstone itself may have swallowed the evidence. Some believe the bodies of those killed were hidden in the very walls of the caves, sealed behind layers of rock that now bear silent witness to the crimes of the past. Today, the Wabasha Street Caves are a popular tourist attraction, offering tours and even hosting events. The old speakeasy atmosphere is preserved, a strange blend of glamour and menace. Visitors step into the dim lighting and cool, damp air, immediately struck by the feeling that the past is still clinging to the space. Guides recount tales of gangsters who danced and dined here, but they also speak of spirits who may never have left. Many who come to the caves report unexplainable experiences. Some hear the faint strains of jazz music when no band is playing, or the sound of glasses clinking in an empty bar. Others claim to see men in dark suits and fedoras sitting at tables, only for the figures to vanish when approached. Shadows flit across the walls where no one stands, and sudden cold drafts rush through the tunnels without explanation. The most enduring story is that of the Gangster Massacre. The tale goes that 3 men, rivals in some underworld feud, were lined up against a wall inside the caves and gunned down. Witnesses claim that their bodies disappeared, never accounted for in police records, as if the sandstone walls themselves had taken them. To this day, some visitors standing in that very spot describe feeling a sudden heaviness in the air, a sensation of dread, or even the distinct sound of gunshots reverberating through the stone. One of the eeriest encounters reported is the sighting of a woman in a long, elegant gown. She has been spotted gliding across the old dance floor, her presence so vivid that more than one guest has mistaken her for a costumed performer. But when they approach, she fades into the shadows, leaving only the echo of her high heels tapping against the floor. Some believe she is a former patron, perhaps caught in crossfire or abandoned in betrayal, doomed to relive her nights in the caves forever. Even staff who work there today tell their own stories. Bartenders have heard whispers when they were alone, or felt a sudden cold hand brush against their arm. Tour guides have seen figures at the back of a room who vanished the moment the lights were turned on. The caves seem alive, every creak and echo carrying with it a reminder that these tunnels have witnessed centuries of history and, not all of it pleasant. The sandstone itself seems to hold memories, like a sponge soaking up human emotion. The laughter of dancers, the fear of those who faced their end in the dark, the secrets whispered by bootleggers sit, all lingers, layered together in a tapestry of haunting. It's no wonder that those who step inside sometimes walk away shaken, convinced that the past is not as far away as we like to think. The Wabasha Street Caves stand today as both a monument to St. Paul's roaring gangster era and a reminder of the lives lost in shadows. For every story of music and revelry, there is another of blood and betrayal. And for those who wander its tunnels, there is the inescapable feeling that someone unseen walks just a step behind, watching, waiting, perhaps reliving a night that ended too soon. The mansion that once housed Four Paws Restaurant still looms over St. Paul, its elegant Victorian design a striking reminder of a bygone era. Though the restaurant closed its doors in 2019, the home itself continues to stir whispers. Built in the 1800s by Joseph Fourpour, a wealthy and influential businessman, the grand residence was meant to symbolize stability and success. Yet beneath the ornate details and refined reputation, the house hides a story of scandal, heartbreak, and untimely death tragedies that many believe left behind lingering spirits. Joseph Fourpour was a man who seemed to have everything: wealth, prestige, and a beautiful home that stood as a landmark in the growing city of St. Paul. But like many stories of grandeur, his had shadows woven into it. Rumor has it that Joseph became entangled in an affair with one of the young maids who worked in the mansion. The relationship was secret at first, hidden behind the heavy velvet curtains of respectability. But secrets rarely stay buried forever. When his wife allegedly discovered the truth, Joseph was overcome with despair and shame. The weight of scandal during the era when family honor meant everything was too much for him to bear. In a moment of hopelessness, he ended his life, leaving behind not only his family, but a dark stain on the beautiful home he had built. The tragedy did not end with Joseph. The young maid, devastated by the affair's exposure and by Joseph's sudden death, was left isolated and shamed. Her grief and despair culminated in her own tragic decision. She hanged herself within the mansion. 2 lives lost, tied together by love, secrecy, and sorrow. From that point on, the house was never quite the same. As decades passed, the mansion changed hands and eventually was transformed into Four Paws Restaurant, an upscale dining destination known for its refined menu and lavish atmosphere. Patrons came for the food and ambience, but many left with stories that had little to do with cuisine. Servers whispered of cold drafts that swept suddenly through otherwise warm rooms. Diners swore they heard footsteps overhead in areas that should have been empty. Shadows flickered along the staircases and corridors, and voices were sometimes heard in hushed tones, like arguments carried on from another century. One of the most common reports came from guests seated near the upper floors. Women described feeling as if they were being watched, a heavy presence pressing against them while they dined. Some even claimed to have seen the figure of a maid in old-fashioned attire, standing quietly in doorways, only for her to vanish when they turned to face her fully. Staff often linked these sightings to the spirit of the maid who had taken her own life, forever wandering the place she could not leave behind. Joseph himself is also said to linger in the mansion. Visitors reported glimpses of a man in period clothing staring from the windows on the upper floor. Sometimes, his figure appeared in mirrors, his expression somber and heavy with regret. A few staff members swore they felt his presence most strongly in the wine cellar, where the air seemed unnaturally cold and oppressive, as if the sadness of his final days had sunk into the very stone. The mansion's grand staircase, once a centerpiece of its opulent design, became a hotspot for paranormal encounters. Several guests reported feeling an unseen hand grazing their shoulder as they ascended or descended. Others felt as though someone was following them, only to turn and find no one there. A few employees even refused to take the stairs alone late at night after locking up, convinced they were not the only ones in the building. One chilling account comes from a server who stayed late after closing. As she was polishing glasses in the dining room, she heard the sound of weeping upstairs, soft at first, then louder, unmistakably the voice of a woman crying. Thinking a coworker was in distress, she climbed the stairs, only to find the floor deserted. The sobs stopped the moment she reached the top landing, replaced by an eerie silence that made her rush back down, heart pounding. Despite its haunted reputation, Four Paws was beloved by many. Some diners even came hoping for a brush with the supernatural, turning a meal into an experience steeped in history and mystery. But others left unsettled, unable to shake the feeling that unseen eyes had been on them throughout the evening. The combination of exquisite dining and spectral company made the restaurant one of St. Paul's most unique destinations. When Four Paws closed in 2019, many lamented the loss of both a fine restaurant and a cultural landmark. Yet the mansion remains, still standing with its ornate Victorian features and its aura of melancholy. Locals insist that the spirits remain as well. The echoes of Joseph and the maid linger in the quiet hallways and behind the shuttered windows. Those who pass by at night sometimes report seeing faint lights flicker inside, or the silhouette of a figure pacing slowly from one room to another. The story of Four Paws Restaurant is more than one of fine dining or architecture. It is a reminder of how deeply human emotion can imprint itself upon a place. Love, guilt, betrayal, and grief wove themselves into the fabric of the mansion, leaving behind something that refuses to fade. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, stepping into that house meant stepping into a story where the past was never truly gone, and where two spirits may still be searching for peace that eluded them in life. The Palmer House Hotel in Sauk Center, Minnesota, is a place where history and the paranormal intertwine so tightly that one cannot separate the two. Built in 1901 on the ashes of the original hotel that burned to the ground, the Palmer House quickly established itself as a hub for weary travelers, businessmen, and locals seeking entertainment. Its grand architecture and central location made it a landmark, a place that symbolized new beginnings for a town that had just lost so much. Yet, within its walls, shadows linger, and guests whisper that not all who checked into the Palmer ever truly left. From the moment you step through the Palmer's doors, the atmosphere feels different, welcoming, yet heavy with something unseen. Guests have often described a sense of being watched, even when standing alone in the ornate lobby. Staff who have worked at the hotel for years confirm that strange things happen with startling regularity. Lights flicker, footsteps echo across empty hallways, and whispers carry through the air, though no source can be found. These are not isolated experiences, but part of the Palmer House's enduring reputation as one of Minnesota's most haunted places. One of the most frequently mentioned spirits is said to reside in Room 11, a guest room with an unusually high number of reports. Visitors describe waking in the middle of the night to find a heavy presence in the room, as though someone is sitting on the edge of the bed. Others say they've heard scratching noises along the walls or the sound of deep, labored breathing near their ear while they tried to sleep. A few even reported that the doorknob rattled violently, as if someone or something was trying to force its way inside. For paranormal investigators, Room 11 has become a hotspot, with many claiming to capture unexplained voices and sudden temperature drops. The basement of the Palmer House carries its own chilling legacy. What was once used for storage and maintenance is now known as one of the most active areas in the building. Employees avoid going down alone whenever possible, citing the unnerving feeling of being followed by something just beyond sight. Apparitions have been spotted darting between the old stone walls, and sudden cold spots appear even during the warmest days of summer. A few brave visitors reported feeling as though invisible hands brushed against their arms or tugged gently at their clothing. One paranormal team recounted how their equipment picked up a chilling growl in the silence of the basement sound that none of them heard with their ears at the time, but which the recording captured clearly. The Palmer House Bar and Restaurant, lively with chatter and laughter most nights, has also played host to inexplicable events. Patrons enjoying their meals sometimes glance up to see figures dressed in old-fashioned attire drifting past the dining room. When they do a double take, the figures vanish into thin air. Glasses have been known to slide across counters on their own, and mirrors reflect fleeting shadows that vanish when investigated. Staff members cleaning late at night describe the unnerving sound of footsteps pacing the length of the bar. Long after the last customer has left, stories tied to the Palmer House often center around the idea that the spirits are not random, but are somehow tied to the land and history itself. Before the hotel, the site hosted Sauk Center's first hotel, which burned down in a devastating fire. Some speculate that souls lost in that blaze may still cling to the spot, unwilling or unable to move on. Others believe that the Palmer's long history as a hub for travelers meant that those who died while passing through left a part of themselves behind, eternally bound to the hotel that served as their last stop. One of the most chilling tales involves a spectral child seen wandering the halls. Guests have reported hearing the laughter of a little boy late at night, usually near the second floor. Some have even spotted him, a small figure darting around corners or peeking out from behind doorways. When approached, he vanishes instantly. The child is often described as playful, yet there is something undeniably unsettling about a ghost so young haunting the grand old hotel. Writers and artists have long been drawn to the Palmer House, perhaps because of its haunting charm. Sinclair Lewis, the Nobel Prize-winning author and native of Sauk Center, is said to have drawn inspiration from the building and the town it anchors. Some even claim that Lewis's spirit returns occasionally to the Palmer, lingering in the place that was so central to his formative years. Guests staying in the hotel's writing-themed rooms sometimes report sudden bursts of inspiration accompanied by strange sensations, as though unseen forces were nudging them to put pen to paper. Despite its reputation, the Palmer House is far from abandoned. It thrives as both a historic hotel and a destination for those curious about the paranormal. Ghost hunters flock from across the country to spend the night, hoping for a glimpse of something beyond the veil. While some leave disappointed, convinced that nothing happened, many others carry away experiences that they cannot explain. Shadows moving without cause, voices whispering names, or the unmistakable weight of a presence pressing down upon them in the dead of night. These accounts add to the Palmer's already rich legacy. The haunted reputation of the Palmer House is not built on a single story or isolated event, but on decades of encounters layered one upon another. Each guest who experiences something unexplainable contributes to the building's lore, weaving a tapestry of supernatural intrigue that is as much a part of the Palmer as its ornate woodwork and historic charm. Even after more than a century of operation, the Palmer House continues to blur the line between the living and the dead. Whether the spirits of those of lost travelers, victims of the fire that destroyed the original hotel, or echoes of tragedies long forgotten, they linger still, tied to the halls and rooms of the grand Victorian building. To step into the Palmer House is to step into a place where history breathes, where whispers travel on unseen air, and where the boundary between past and present is perilously thin. Grey Cloud Island in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, is a place that deceives with its quiet beauty. Rolling farmland stretches toward the horizon. Roads curve gently through thick clusters of trees, and the surrounding Mississippi River gives the island an almost timeless quality. To the casual visitor, it is peaceful, almost serene. Yet beneath this calm exterior lies a history steeped in death, mystery, and lingering spirits. For those who know its stories, Grey Cloud Island is not simply farmland. It is one of the most haunted places in the state, and perhaps the nation. The land carries with it centuries of human history. Long before settlers arrived, Native American tribes called the area home. Archaeological evidence and oral histories suggest the island was used as a sacred burial site. Ancient mounds are said to still exist, hidden among the fields and trees. Though many have been disturbed over the years by development and farming, To the Dakota people, Gray Cloud was hallowed ground, a place where ancestors were laid to rest. Disturbing such a place, they believed, would bring misfortune to anyone who dared. When settlers later arrived and built farms, homes, and eventually cemeteries on the island, many say the balance was broken and the haunting began. Reports of paranormal activity on Gray Cloud Island are as varied as they are unnerving. Some locals speak of phantom figures wandering the rural roads at night, their outlines faint and translucent, vanishing the moment headlights catch them. Drivers have described the sudden appearance of a woman in white standing in the middle of the road, forcing them to slam on their brakes. But when they step out of the car, no one is there. Others say they've seen soldiers in tattered uniforms, perhaps echoes of the Dakota conflict or even later wars forever tied to the island's soil. The island's cemeteries are said to be particularly active. One small graveyard, tucked back along a quiet road, is notorious for unsettling encounters. Visitors tell of glowing orbs floating between the headstones, inexplicable cold spots, and the sensation of being watched from the tree line. Some have heard whispers drifting on the wind, calling their names, though no one else is present. The gravestones themselves, many weathered and cracked, seem to hold a heavy silence, as if the ground beneath them refuses to rest. One legend often repeated involves a young native woman whose spirit roams the island. She is sometimes called the Bride of Gray Cloud, described as wearing a flowing dress that billows in the wind, even when the night is still. Witnesses claim she appears most often near the water, her figure glowing faintly under the moonlight. Some say she is mourning a lost love, while others insist she is tied to the desecrated burial grounds, forever searching for peace that will not come. When approached, she fades into the mist, leaving only the sound of rushing water and the chill of sorrow in her wake. Though no source can ever be found, some attribute these noises to the spirits of the Dakota, reenacting moments of conflict and ritual. Others believe they are the cries of the restless dead, caught between worlds. Campers who dared to stay overnight on the island have told stories of waking to the sound of footsteps circling their tents. There are darker tales, as well, stories of malevolent presences that seem to target those who show disrespect. Teenagers who once trespassed in the cemeteries claimed they were chased from the grounds by shadowy figures, their bodies freezing with an unnatural cold as they ran. Others have reported their cars stalling without explanation on the island's backroads, only to restart once they left the area. One particularly chilling account involves a group of friends who visited the island late one night. As they drove past a stand of trees, they spotted a figure standing at the edge of the road. At first they thought it was a man, but as their headlights illuminated it, the figure seemed to dissolve into black smoke, spreading outward before vanishing completely. Shaken, they left immediately, never to return. Adding to the mystery is the sense of oppressive silence that often descends on the island. Visitors describe moments when all sound disappears, the crickets, the rustling leaves, even the distant hum of cars, and a heavy stillness takes over. In those moments, many claim they feel surrounded by something unseen, as though countless eyes are watching them from the shadows. The silence often ends abruptly with a snap of a twig, a gust of wind, or a distant wail that raises every hair on the body. Though Gray Cloud Island is home to modern residents, its haunted reputation persists. Many locals avoid speaking of it, believing that acknowledging the spirits only invites them closer. Others embrace the stories, warning visitors to treat the land with respect or risk becoming part of its lore. Paranormal investigators who have explored the island leave with recordings of unexplained voices, images of misty figures, and experiences they cannot rationalize. What makes Gray Cloud Island so haunting is not simply one ghost story, but the layered history of conflict, sacred ground, and tragedy. Every burial mound, every grave, and every shadow on the road seems to carry a weight of memory too heavy to fade. To walk the island at night is to feel that weight pressing down, reminding all who dare that some places are not meant to be disturbed. For those who live nearby, Gray Cloud Island is a paradoxa, place of beauty by day and terror by night. Its fields and riverbanks may look calm beneath the sun, but once darkness falls, the past awakens. Spirits rise from the soil, whispers drift on the wind, and shadows take form where none should exist. It is a place where history clings tightly to the present, refusing to let go. And for those who dare to explore it, Gray Cloud Island offers not just a glimpse of Minnesota's haunted past, but a reminder that some places are forever marked by the souls who came before. The Fitzgerald Theater in St. Paul stands as Minnesota's oldest theater, a grand and historic building that has been a hub for performances and entertainment since 1910. With its elegant design, rich history, and cultural significance, it has become an icon of the city. Yet beneath the velvet curtains and the dazzling lights lies a reputation that goes beyond its theatrical fame. For more than a century, countless performers, stagehands, and audiences have passed through its doors, but some say not everyone has left. Whispers of ghosts and unexplained events have made the Fitzgerald Theater as famous for its hauntings as it is for its performances. From the moment you step into the theater, you can feel the weight of history pressing down. The ornate architecture reflects the early 20th century, a time when theaters were palaces for the arts. The faint smell of aged wood and old velvet lingers in the air, and the creak of the floorboards echoes faintly in the silence of an empty hall. Many who have walked its corridors report an unsettling sensation as though unseen eyes are watching them, following their every move. Some dismiss it as the atmosphere of an old building, but others believe something much more is at play. Stagehands, who spend long hours preparing for shows, have perhaps the most chilling encounters. They tell of hearing heavy footsteps echoing down hallways, only to find themselves completely alone. The footsteps often stop abruptly, leaving an eerie silence behind. Cold spots are frequently felt near the wings of the stage, patches of freezing air that drift across the room with no explanation. Sometimes, when the stage is empty, the faint sound of a voice will carry across the backstage area, a whisper so quiet it seems almost imagined until it happens again. The doors of the theater have also earned a reputation for slamming shut without warning. These are not gentle closures caused by drafts, but loud, deliberate bangs that startle anyone within earshot. Even when carefully propped open, the doors have been known to swing closed with force, as though some unseen hand pushed them shut. Actors rehearsing on stage have often stopped startled by a sudden crash in the distance, only to find the cause untraceable. But among the stories of shadows, whispers, and phantom footsteps, one name has risen to prominence: Ben. Ben is said to be the most famous ghost of the Fitzgerald Theater, and his story has become legend among staff and performers. He is believed to have been a stagehand who once worked in the theater, though details about his life and death remain hazy. What is clear, however, is that his spirit lingers within the building, making his presence known in mischievous but unmistakable ways. Ben's antics are almost playful, though they can be unnerving to those who experience them. Stagehands report finding props moved from their designated places, sometimes arranged in strange patterns, as if to make a point. Lights flicker unexpectedly during rehearsals, and in some cases, entire sections of stage lighting have gone dark only to come back on moments later, with no technical fault to be found. Costumes, too, seem to be a favorite target of Ben's energy. Performers have felt a sudden tug on their clothing, as though someone were pulling at them, only to turn around and find no one there. Witnesses describe Ben's presence not as malevolent but mischievous, as though he enjoys the company of those still working in the theater. In fact, some staff have come to think of him as a sort of guardian spirit, keeping an eye on the place he once devoted his life to. Performers preparing to take the stage often whisper a quick acknowledgement to Ben, hoping he'll look kindly upon their show. Yet not all encounters with Ben are playful. On occasion, his presence has been more intense, doors slamming directly behind people, lights going completely dark during a performance, or sudden chills so strong they send shivers through the entire body. Some believe that Ben's spirit is restless, trapped within the theater, not by choice, but by a bond he cannot break. If true, his playful mischief may be his way of coping with an eternity in the shadows of the stage he once loved. The audience areas of the theater are not exempt from activity either. Patrons have reported seeing figures sitting in the balconies, only for those figures to vanish when approached. Others have described hearing the faint rustle of clothing beside them in an empty row, as if someone unseen has taken a seat. Ushers have grown accustomed to these stories, some admitting they've experienced similar events themselves. For paranormal investigators, the Fitzgerald Theater has become a prime location. AVP sessions have captured disembodied voices, some of them whispering names or phrases that seem tied to the theater's history. Shadowy figures have been spotted darting across the stage, vanishing into the curtains. Temperature readings show sharp drops in otherwise stable rooms. And the overwhelming feeling reported by nearly all who investigate is a sense that they are not alone. Despite its haunted reputation, or perhaps because of it, the theater continues to thrive as a cultural landmark. To many, its ghostly tales add to its charm, creating an atmosphere rich with history and mystery. For performers, stepping onto the stage is not just about entertaining a living audience, but perhaps also paying homage to those who never left. The Fitzgerald Theater stands as more than just a performance venue. It is a place where the past and present intertwine, where every creak of the floor and flicker of the lights could be a sign of unseen company. Ben, the mischievous stagehand, has become as much a part of the theater's story as the countless artists who have performed there. Whether one believes in spirits or not, there is no denying that the Fitzgerald Theater holds an energy that is impossible to ignore. In its grand halls and shadowy corners, the echoes of history continue to resonate. Every performance carries with it not just the voices of the actors on stage, but perhaps the whispers of those who came before, spirits forever tied to Minnesota's oldest and most haunted theater. The St. James Hotel in Red Wing, Minnesota, is a landmark of elegance, history, and whispers of the supernatural. Built in 1875, this grand establishment quickly became a centerpiece for travelers navigating the Mississippi River. Its striking architecture, Victorian charm, and rich interior details drew guests from near and far. But behind the polished wood, ornate, and antique furnishings lies a history layered with stories of tragedy, mystery, and spirits that some say have never left. Among the hotel's many ghostly tales, one figure stands out: Clara Lillyblad, one of the original owners. Clara's story begins in the late 19th century, when she and her family managed the St. James Hotel. She was known for her meticulous attention to detail, ensuring that every guest received impeccable service. Those who stayed at the hotel spoke of her warmth, her eye for hospitality, and her dedication to the building she loved. But tragedy struck when Clara passed away unexpectedly, leaving the hotel in the hands of others. According to local lore, her spirit never departed. Over the decades, numerous guests and staff have reported encounters with Clara. The most common sightings occur on the 4th floor, where she is often described as appearing in period clothing reminiscent of the late 1800s. A long, flowing dress with delicate lace details, her hair perfectly styled as if she had stepped out of a photograph. Witnesses say she moves quietly down the hallways, appearing at the foot of beds or along the corridor, her presence both comforting and uncanny. Guests staying in the rooms on the 4th floor often describe experiences that are hard to explain. Some report feeling a gentle touch on their shoulder, as if someone were checking to ensure they were comfortable. Others have woken to find their sheets perfectly smoothed, the covers tucked in tighter than they had left them. Many believe Clara's spirit is protective, still tending to the hotel and caring for the guests, much as she did in life. It's not an ominous haunting, but rather a benevolent presence, one that has earned the affection and respect of those who have encountered her. Staff members have their own stories of Clara's lingering energy. Housekeepers often speak of objects being moved slightly, as if someone were arranging them out of habit. Lights occasionally flicker when no electrical issues are present, and the faint sound of footsteps can be heard echoing through empty hallways. Security cameras and audio recordings have captured unexplained shadows and faint whispers that can be attributed to any living person. Employees often learn to acknowledge these occurrences without fear, understanding that Clara is simply maintaining her watch over the St. James Hotel. While Clara is the most well-known spirit, she is not the only one said to inhabit the building. Guests and staff have reported seeing other shadowy figures in hallways, hearing voices calling their names, or sensing a presence in empty rooms. Some visitors have even experienced cold spots in otherwise warm areas, a classic sign of paranormal activity. Despite these eerie reports, the overall atmosphere of the hotel remains inviting, with many claiming that the spirits are protective rather than malevolent. One particularly compelling story involves a newlywed couple who stayed in one of the fourth-floor suites. During the night, they awoke to find the room illuminated by a soft, warm light with no visible source. The room was filled with a faint scent of lavender, which was reportedly Clara's favorite perfume. The couple felt a comforting presence at the foot of the bed, a sensation so tangible that they could almost feel someone sitting there, watching over them. By morning, the experience left them both awestruck and grateful, convinced that they had been under Clara's care. Over the years, the St. James Hotel has embraced its haunted history. Paranormal enthusiasts and curious travelers flock to the site, hoping to catch a glimpse of the spectral Clara, or to feel the energy that permeates the building. Ghost tours are sometimes organized, and the hotel's story has been featured in books, television shows, and documentaries about haunted locations. Visitors are often advised to respect the history and spirits of the hotel, understanding that this is a place where the past still holds sway. The hotel's rich architecture and historic charm only amplify the haunted experience. From the intricately carved woodwork to the grand staircases and antique furnishings, every corner of the St. James Hotel seems to whisper stories of the past. It is easy to imagine Clara moving gracefully through the halls, ensuring that everything is just as it should be, maintaining the standard of hospitality she upheld so meticulously during her lifetime. What makes the St. James Hotel particularly fascinating is the way its hauntings are intertwined with its history and character. Unlike many haunted sites that evoke fear or dread, the St. James offers a glimpse of a spirit bound by love, duty, and devotion. Clara Lilyblad is not merely a ghost. She is a guardian, a caretaker, whose presence reminds visitors of the hotel's long and storied past. Her spirit bridges the centuries, connecting those who enter the building today with the lives and experiences of those who lived, loved, and worked there long ago. For those who visit, the St. James Hotel is more than just a place to sleep or dine at. It is an experience steeped in history and mystery. Guests often leave with stories of unexplained phenomena, an appreciation for the hotel's architecture, and a newfound respect for the spirits that reside within. Whether you believe in the paranormal or simply enjoy a good story, the St. James Hotel offers a unique window into Minnesota's haunted history. The St. James Hotel remains a testament to the enduring presence of those who came before. Its halls continue to echo with footsteps, voices, and the gentle touch of Clara Lilyblad's spirit. The hotel's legacy, elegance, and spectral inhabitants combine to create a space where history, mystery, and the supernatural converge. Those who cross its threshold enter not only a historic hotel, but also a realm where the past is alive, watching, and forever present. First Avenue in Minneapolis is a cultural landmark, a music venue steeped in history, rhythm, and the spirit of countless performers who have graced its stage. Most famously, it became synonymous with the legendary musician Prince, whose association with the club cemented its place in American music history. Yet beyond the bright lights, the pounding bass, and the cheering crowds, First Avenue holds a darker, quieter reputation, a paranormal legacy that has intrigued and unsettled both staff and visitors for decades. The building that houses First Avenue was constructed in the early 20th century, originally serving as the Greyhound bus depot. Its brick walls and sprawling interior witnessed the comings and goings of countless travelers, but they also absorbed moments of tragedy and sorrow. Among these stories, the tale that has persisted the longest involves the ghost of a young woman who reportedly died within the building. Though details are sparse and often inconsistent, Legend has it that her death occurred in one of the restrooms during the mid-20th century, under circumstances that remain unclear. Since then, those who work or perform at First Avenue claim that her spirit lingers, leaving subtle yet undeniable signs of her presence. Musicians preparing for performances have often been the first to encounter the unexplained. Some describe hearing the echo of footsteps in hallways and stairwells long after the venue has emptied. The rhythmic tap of shoes on tile, sometimes matching the pace of a hurried person, only to fade into silence, creates a sensation of being followed. Others recount that the sound of toilets flushing can occur without explanation, sometimes several at a time, as though an unseen hand is moving through the space. These small yet persistent disturbances are attributed to the young woman's ghost, a presence that refuses to be ignored. Cleaning staff, who spend long hours in the venue when it is otherwise deserted, they describe sudden drops in temperature in certain sections of the building, a cold that seeps into the bones even on warm days. Many have spoken of hearing a faint sobbing, echoing softly down the hallways, emanating from the restroom where the young woman is said to have died. The sound is subtle at first, just a whisper of despair, but it grows unnervingly clear to those who linger. Some staff have admitted to feeling watched while performing routine tasks, a sensation that intensifies the deeper into the empty corridors they venture. Performers, too, have shared stories that blur the line between fear and intrigue. One musician recalled practicing alone in a side room when he felt a sudden shift in the air, as though someone had stepped behind him. Turning quickly, he found no one there, but the sensation of presence lingered, unnerving him for the remainder of the session. Others have mentioned hearing faint whispers during sound checks, voices that speak too softly to discern words, yet unmistakably human in tone. These experiences, though often brief, contribute to the eerie mystique that permeates First Avenue. Patrons have occasionally experienced the paranormal as well. Some concert-goers have mentioned glimpsing a shadowy figure out of the corner of their eye, moving silently behind curtains or along stairwells. Others report a sudden, inexplicable chill as they pass certain areas of the venue, a feeling akin to being brushed by unseen fingertips. While the excitement of live music often overshadows these moments, those who notice them speak of a subtle, lingering unease that refuses to fade entirely. The venue's history as a Greyhound bus depot further deepens the haunting. The constant movement of travelers, combined with the stresses and tragedies that often accompany life on the road, created an environment where emotional energy may have imprinted itself on the space. The young woman's death, when layered upon decades of human activity, seems to have left a mark that continues to resonate with both living and spectral presences. In this way, First Avenue is not only a place of music, but also a repository of memory and emotion, a crossroads where the living and the departed intersect. Interestingly, many who encounter the young woman's presence do not describe her as malicious. While her appearances and the sounds attributed to her can be unsettling, there is a sense of lingering sadness rather than anger. She is often interpreted as a lost soul, tethered to the building by her untimely death, and perhaps by the strong emotional energy of a venue that has seen so much joy, heartbreak, and expression over the years. Her presence is a reminder of the human stories that have unfolded within First Avenue's walls. Stories that are sometimes joyous, sometimes tragic, but always deeply felt. Paranormal investigators and enthusiasts have taken an interest in First Avenue over the years. Equipment capturing audio, video, and temperature fluctuations often registers anomalies that seem tied to the young woman's spirit. EVPs have recorded faint sobs and whispering voices that cannot be attributed to any living person. Cameras sometimes capture fleeting shadows or movements that defy explanation. Though skeptics remain, the accumulation of reports over decades has made First Avenue a respected and intriguing site within Minnesota's paranormal community. Despite, or perhaps because of its haunted reputation, First Avenue continues to thrive as a cultural hub. The presence of the past adds a layer of depth to the venue, intertwining the excitement of music with the weight of history. Performers and staff often learn to acknowledge the building's spectral resident, showing respect and understanding rather than fear. Some even view the young woman's presence as a quiet form of companionship, a witness to the creativity, passion, and energy that flows through the club each night. First Avenue stands today as more than just a music venue. It is a living monument to Minnesota's cultural and paranormal history. The building's walls hold echoes of footsteps, whispers, and sobs, reminding everyone who enters that history is never truly gone. Whether it is the thrill of a live show, the memory of past performers, or the silent watch of a ghostly presence, First Avenue remains a place where the past and present intertwine, and where the music and, perhaps the spirit of the young woman plays on. The Soap Factory in Minneapolis is a landmark that has shifted identities over the decades, from an industrial production plant to a modern art gallery and, more famously, to the site of one of the city's most chilling haunted house experiences. Visitors flock to its annual Halloween attraction, drawn by the thrill of carefully orchestrated scares and immersive sets. Yet, many who have spent time within its century-old walls claim that the true terror doesn't end when the actors leave or the lights go up. The building itself, steeped in history and shadows, seems to retain an unsettling presence that has become part of its identity. Constructed over 100 years ago, the Soap Factory was originally a working industrial site, producing soap and related chemicals for the growing Minneapolis population. During its early years, the building was the scene of grueling labor conditions. Workers endured long hours, hazardous machinery, and toxic fumes. Accidents were frequent, some minor but others catastrophic. Trapped under heavy equipment, burned by chemicals, or overcome by fumes. The intensity of these events left a mark on the building, creating an energy that some say has lingered long after the machinery fell silent and the factory transitioned to new uses. Artists and employees of the Soap Factory, in its modern incarnation, have reported experiences that defy conventional explanation. Many of these accounts occur after hours, when the building is quiet and the gallery spaces empty. One artist described working late into the night on a large installation, only to feel a sudden chill sweep through the room. Paintbrushes would occasionally fall from their holders without any discernible cause, and canvases appeared slightly shifted from where they had been left. These small but persistent disturbances often left those working in the building uneasy, prompting them to lock doors, check corners, and sometimes even leave early. Other employees have shared stories of hearing whispers echoing through hallways where no one else is present. The voices are faint but distinct, a mixture of murmured words and incoherent phrases. Some claim the whispers are accompanied by fleeting shadows, caught out of the corner of the eye, darting just beyond the reach of light. Security staff have corroborated these accounts, noting strange temperature drops in certain sections of the building and monitoring equipment registering unusual fluctuations. Even when cameras record no visible movement, a sense of being observed remains a presence that feels alive yet intangible. The haunted reputation of the Soap Factory extends beyond the gallery's daytime activities. During the annual haunted house attraction, performers and crew members report encounters that feel different from the staged scares. Objects sometimes move unexpectedly, props shift in ways that cannot be explained, and some actors claim to feel hands brushing against their skin in empty corridors. While the attraction itself is designed to frighten visitors, these anomalies happen even in spaces that are supposed to be unoccupied or during setup hours, blurring the line between theatrical and paranormal experiences. Visitors to the haunted house have also reported unexplainable sensations. Some speak of seeing shadowy figures lingering near corners or along stairwells that have no role in the attraction. Others describe sudden drops in temperature as they navigate the narrow passageways, accompanied by the faintest sounds of whispers or footsteps echoing just behind them. While many assume these experiences are part of the immersive design, staff members who witness similar occurrences during closed hours attest that something far more unsettling may be at play. Part of the eerie energy of the Soap Factory is tied to its layered history. The building has seen generations of labor, creativity, and transformation. Each era left its own imprint, physical, emotional, and perhaps spiritual. Industrial accidents and tragic deaths in the factory's early years, combined with the high-intensity energy of art creation and theatrical performance, create a complex mix of residual experiences that some believe manifests as hauntings. The building, in essence, serves as a vessel for the echoes of human suffering and human expression, coexisting in one space where the lines between past and present blur. Some of the most vivid accounts come from long-term gallery residents. One curator reported entering the space late at night and feeling a presence behind her, though she saw nothing. As she turned, she felt a pressure on her shoulder, almost like a hand gently pressing down. Tools she had left on a workbench were slightly shifted, and small objects appeared in places she had not left them. Though unnerving, these experiences were never violent, more like an acknowledgement of her presence by an unseen inhabitant, a reminder that the building is never truly empty. The building's architecture amplifies its haunting qualities. High ceilings, exposed beams, and narrow hallways create an echoing effect, allowing sounds to travel unpredictably. Dark corners and long unlit spaces provide natural hiding places for both human and spectral movement. Even the old machinery left in some parts of the building casts strange shadows, adding to the sense that the walls themselves are watching. For those familiar with its history, these features transform the industrial aesthetic into something far more ominous, a landscape where the past is alive in subtle but palpable ways. Despite the unsettling phenomena, the soap factory continues to thrive as both a gallery and a haunted house attraction. Artists, employees, and visitors have grown accustomed to the odd occurrences, often interpreting them as a part of the building's character rather than a cause for alarm. Paranormal enthusiasts and curious guests visit your hoping to experience firsthand the lingering presence that has become so intertwined with the building's identity. The soap factory in Minneapolis stands as a testament to the enduring presence of history and human experience, from the harsh labor conditions of its industrial past to the creative energy of its modern incarnation. The building embodies layers of emotion, memory, and perhaps spirits that refuse to leave. For those who walk its halls after dark, it is not merely a gallery or haunted attraction. It is a living chronicle of the people who worked, suffered, and created within its walls. A place where the past quietly lingers and the echoes of the unseen are never far away. The Glensheen Mansion in Duluth, Minnesota, stands as an architectural masterpiece. A sprawling estate of French Renaissance style, perched along the serene shores of Lake Superior. Its ornate woodwork, hand-carved details, and expansive gardens paint a picture of elegance and wealth. Visitors often marvel at the mansion's beauty, imagining the life of the Congdon family, who made their fortune in mining and finance. Yet behind this picturesque exterior lies a dark chapter in Minnesota history, one that has left a lingering shadow over the estate and sparked tales of restless spirits wandering its halls. The Glensheen Mansion became notorious in 1977 when one of its residents, heiress Elizabeth Congdon, was brutally murdered in her bedroom. Her nurse, Velma Patella, was beaten to death on the grand staircase, a shocking crime that sent tremors through the Duluth community. The motive, tied to inheritance and family disputes, added a layer of betrayal and greed to an already tragic narrative. The violent deaths, combined with the mansion's age and grandeur, created fertile ground for ghost stories, with many claiming that the spirits of Elizabeth and Velma still linger within the walls of Glensheen. Guests touring the mansion often report experiences that cannot be easily explained. Many speak of seeing a woman in period clothing drifting silently through the hallways, her presence ethereal yet unmistakable. Most believe this apparition to be Elizabeth herself, forever tied to the home where her life was violently ended. Witnesses describe a sense of melancholy surrounding the figure, as if she is replaying her last moments over and over, trapped in a loop of sorrow and loss. Her appearance is usually fleeting, a glimpse in the corner of a room, or a shadow moving just beyond the reach of the light, but it leaves a lasting impression on those who encounter her. The Grand Staircase, site of the nurse Velma Patila's brutal death, is frequently reported as a hotspot of paranormal activity. Visitors and staff alike have felt sudden cold chills when approaching the staircase. A drop in temperature so sharp it seems unnatural. Some have heard the sound of footsteps echoing along the marble, even when no one is present. Doors near the area often slam without warning, and faint, inexplicable noises, muffled whispers, creaks, and the soft thud of falling objects have been documented by tour guides and staff after hours. These disturbances are often subtle, but consistent enough to suggest the presence of unseen entities. Staff members working late in the mansion have shared numerous stories of eerie encounters. One housekeeper recounted cleaning a room on the second floor when she felt a sudden cold draft and saw the shadow of a figure pass through the doorway. Turning quickly, she found the room empty, but an inexplicable sense of being watched lingered for hours afterward. Another employee described the sound of doors opening and closing in the West Wing, though every entrance was locked and no one else was in the building. These accounts, combined with repeated reports from visitors, have cemented Glen Sheen's reputation as one of Minnesota's most haunted locations. Some of the most unnerving experiences occur in the bedrooms and private areas of the mansion. Guests have reported seeing objects move slightly on their own, a chair rocking, a book sliding from a shelf, or a picture frame tilting as if guided by invisible hands. In certain rooms, temperature fluctuations are common, with cold spots appearing even in the warmest parts of the house. Lights flicker without electrical cause, and the sensation of an unseen presence is often described as a heavy, emotional weight pressing against the chest. The mansion's gardens, which appear serene during the day, are not exempt from ghostly activity. Visitors strolling the grounds at dusk have described the sensation of being followed, hearing footsteps crunching on the gravel behind them, only to turn and find no one there. Some claim to catch glimpses of figures moving among the hedges, shapes that vanish when approached. The combination of the mansion's architectural grandeur and its tragic history creates an atmosphere where the natural and the supernatural intertwine, blurring the line between beauty and menace. Paranormal investigators have taken a keen interest in Glen Sheen over the years. Using audio and video equipment, they have recorded anomalies that defy conventional explanation. Faint whispers, footsteps, and even shadowy figures appear in recordings made after the mansion is empty. Temperature sensors often register sudden drops near the staircase and bedrooms. While skeptics attribute many of these events to the building's age or to human suggestion, the consistency and frequency of reports make it clear that Glen Sheen's legacy of tragedy has left a lasting impression that continues to affect those who enter. Despite its haunted reputation, Glen Sheen Mansion remains a popular attraction for both history enthusiasts and paranormal seekers. Tours continue to educate visitors about the mansion's architecture, the Congdon family, and the tragic events of 1977, while also acknowledging the stories of ghostly encounters that have become part of the estate's lore. Visitors often leave with a mixture of awe and unease, captivated by the mansion's elegance but haunted by the knowledge of the events that transpired within its walls. The Glen Sheen Mansion stands today as a monument to both beauty and tragedy. Its opulent rooms and meticulously preserved details provide a glimpse into a bygone era, while the echoes of violence and sorrow remind us that history often lingers long after the living have departed. For those who walk its halls, the mansion is not only a window into the past, but also a space where spirits, memory, and mystery coexist, leaving a chilling yet unforgettable impression on all who visit. Beneath the bustling streets of St. Paul, carved into the sandstone bluffs, lie the Walbasha Street caves, a labyrinth of tunnels with a dark and storied past. These caves have worn many masks over the decades. In the 1800s, they were carved out for mining, but by the 1930s, they had transformed into secret speakeasies and clandestine hideouts for gangsters. Alcohol flowed freely, jazz filled the air, and behind the laughter and music, shadows moved with deadly intent. It was a place where deals were made in whispers and lives were taken in silence. Visitors today might arrive expecting a charming underground venue for weddings or guided tours. But the caves carry memories far older and darker than any modern celebration. Guests frequently report experiences that hint at a past that refuses to be forgotten. Some have glimpsed men dressed in 1920s attire, seated casually at the bar, smoking cigars or nursing a glass of whiskey. When approached, these figures fade like smoke, leaving behind only the chill of unseen eyes. It's as if the caves themselves refuse to let go of the spirits who once inhabited them, replaying echoes of their lives in phantom form. The most infamous tale associated with the Wabasha Street Caves involves 3 gangsters who were executed within the tunnels. Their names have been lost to history, but the details of their deaths remain vivid in the accounts passed down over decades. During a night of betrayal, rival mobsters cornered them in one of the labyrinth's larger alcoves. Gunfire erupted, echoing off the sandstone walls, and the 3 men were shot. While their bodies were reportedly removed by law enforcement, many believe their spirits never left. Witnesses report sudden, sharp sounds of gunshots in empty tunnels, often startling tour groups or staff members who are sure the caves should be silent. Shadowy figures are another common occurrence. Some appear perched on ledges, watching silently as visitors wander through the tunnels. Others glide along the walls or dart from alcove to alcove, vanishing when anyone tries to confront them directly. The most unsettling encounters are those where the figures seem aware, tracking your movement or appearing just at the edge of your vision. Visitors often describe a weight in the air, a tension that seems to press in from all sides, as though the caves themselves are aware of the crimes committed within. The caves are also said to harbor auditory hauntings. Besides phantom gunfire, guests report hearing whispers in the dark fragments of conversations, murmurs of warnings, or indecipherable threats. Some claim to hear the laughter of long-dead mobsters echoing through the tunnels, low and sinister, as if the party never ended and the spirits are trapped in an endless loop of revelry and violence. Tour guides occasionally hear footsteps behind them when no one is present, or the distinct clink of a glass being set on a bar that has long since been removed. The architecture of the caves contributes to the eerie experiences. Carved sandstone walls twist into narrow passages and alcoves, creating shadows that seem to move with a life of their own. Every echo is amplified, every draft carries a whisper, and the dark corners play tricks on the mind. Many who walk the tunnels report sudden changes in temperature, pockets of icy air that seem to follow them from room to room, particularly near the locations associated with the gangsters' deaths. Paranormal investigators have visited the Wabasha Street Caves for decades, documenting experiences with audio recordings, EMF meters, and infrared cameras. They often capture unexplained sounds, strange shadows, or fleeting images that cannot be attributed to any living person. One popular EVP recording features a low, menacing voice saying, "Get out," right before the faint sound of gunfire. Such evidence has only reinforced the cave's reputation as a haunted site, one where the past bleeds into the present with unnerving persistence. Despite the darkness that clings to the Wabasha Street Caves, they remain a popular destination. Tourists come for the history, the underground charm, and the thrill of the unknown. Weddings and events continue to take place beneath the sandstone walls, often accompanied by the faint hum of the past. Guests frequently remark that while the caves are beautiful and unique, there is a certain energy that is hard to shake, a sensation of being watched, of unseen eyes tracking every movement. Whether it's the shadowy figures in 1920s attire, the phantom gunshots, or the cold, heavy atmosphere that seems to press from every corner. The Wabasha Street Caves are far more than a simple tourist attraction. They are a living memory of a violent and secretive past, a place where the line between history and the supernatural is blurred. For those who venture into the tunnels, it is impossible not to feel that the spirits of gangsters, lost in betrayal and blood, are still there waiting, watching, and replaying the final moments of their lives in endless, spectral echoes. The Palmer House Hotel in Sauk Center, Minnesota. stands as a striking testament to the town's layered and often dark history. From the moment guests step through its grand doors, there is a sense that this building carries more than the echoes of lively conversation and clinking glasses. It holds the stories of those who lived and died within its walls, some of which have refused to remain in the past. Over the decades, the Palmer House has earned a reputation as one of Minnesota's most haunted hotels. Reports of paranormal activity are frequent and unnerving, often centering around specific rooms and common areas. Guests consistently report waking to find ghostly figures standing silently at the foot of their beds. Among the most common sightings are children apparitions of small, shadowy forms who appear, play briefly, and then vanish as suddenly as they came. Some witnesses describe the children as laughing softly, while others feel an unmistakable chill, as if the air itself carries a memory of tragedy. Rooms 11 and 17 have garnered particular notoriety for intense activity. Guests staying in these rooms often awaken in the middle of the night to the sensation of furniture moving slightly, as though invisible hands are rearranging the space. Radios and televisions frequently turn on and off without explanation, filling otherwise silent rooms with static or faint, distorted voices, leaving them shaken and alert long after the encounter has ended. The intensity of these occurrences has left some first-time visitors too unnerved to return, while others, drawn by curiosity, continue to seek out the hotel's spectral stories. One of the earliest documented accounts comes from a traveling salesman in the 1930s. He recounted waking in room 11 to find a small child sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at him with unblinking eyes. Terrified, he tried to speak, but the child vanished instantly, leaving behind only the faint sound of footsteps retreating across the hardwood floor. Similar accounts have surfaced over the decades, with some visitors seeing more than one child, or encountering apparitions of adults lingering near the doors or in the corners of the rooms. Beyond the bedrooms, the hallways and common areas of the Palmer House also harbor inexplicable phenomena. Staff members often speak of hearing the soft patter of tiny feet running down the corridors when no children are present. Doors open and close on their own, and lights flicker without any apparent electrical cause. Some have reported faint music, the sound of a piano playing in the dining room, though the room itself remains empty. These experiences have been reported consistently enough that many longtime employees treat the unusual occurrences as part of daily life rather than mere imagination. Paranormal investigators have taken a keen interest in the Palmer House over the years, utilizing thermal cameras, EMF detectors, and audio recording equipment. They have captured anomalies that defy easy explanation. Cold spots often appear in areas associated with frequent sightings, while instruments sometimes record low-frequency sounds resembling whispered voices. Investigators suggest that the building's unique combination of history, architecture, and energy from past tragedies may contribute to these phenomena, creating an environment where memories of the past manifest in tangible ways. The hotel's reputation has also made it a magnet for thrill-seekers and ghost enthusiasts. Each year, during guided tours and special events, participants hear the chilling stories of the building's past while walking its shadowy hallways. Some choose to spend the night, hoping to witness firsthand the paranormal activity that has become legendary. Guests frequently report similar experiences, reinforcing the idea that the Palmer House is not simply a place with a dark history, but an active site of supernatural presence. Interestingly, the Palmer House also carries a sense of protection amid the fear. Some paranormal enthusiasts believe that the spirits are not malicious, but rather residual echoes of lives once lived. The ghostly children, while startling, often seem to engage in playful or curious behavior, rather than seeking to harm. Similarly, the adult apparitions are thought to be guardians of the hotel, maintaining the building and its history in ways that modern visitors cannot see or fully understand. This duality fear, mingled with a haunting form of preservation, adds to the complex allure of the Palmer House. Throughout its existence, the Palmer House has remained a vital part of Sauk Center's cultural and historical landscape. Its architecture, with ornate woodwork, high ceilings, and grand staircases, reflects the elegance of the early 20th century, while its reputation as a haunted landmark ensures it remains a destination for those drawn to the unexplained. Whether one visits to marvel at the period details, enjoy a comfortable stay, or experience the thrill of the paranormal, there is no denying that the hotel carries a story far beyond its physical walls. For many, the Palmer House represents the intersection of history and mystery. The building itself is a repository of lives, joys, tragedies, and secrets, some of which refuse to remain hidden. As visitors walk its hallways, sleep in its storied rooms, or stand quietly in its dimly lit corridors, they become part of the ongoing story and narrative that stretches back more than a century, whispering of lives that were lived and, in some way, continue to linger. In the Palmer House Hotel, the past is always present, and the thin veil between the living and the departed feels uncomfortably close. Four Paws Restaurant, before closing its doors in 2019, was celebrated not only for its fine dining and Victorian charm, but also for the unsettling reputation it carried as one of the most haunted locations in St. Paul. The building itself was originally a grand 19th-century mansion, constructed for the wealthy businessman Joseph Forepaugh. Its ornate woodwork, high ceilings, and elegant design made it a striking landmark. The legend begins with Joseph Forepaugh himself. By all accounts, he was a successful and respected man in St. Paul society, but his personal life took a darker turn. According to local lore, Joseph engaged in an affair with one of the household maids. When the scandal became too much to bear and his reputation threatened, he ended the relationship. For the young maid, however, the shame and heartbreak were unbearable. It is said she hanged herself inside the mansion, leaving her spirit tethered to the home she had served in life. From that moment on, strange events were reported by residents, staff, and eventually diners when the mansion was converted into Four Paws Restaurant. The spirit of the maid became the most well-known presence in the building. She was often described as a sorrowful figure in a flowing gown, gliding silently through the stairwell. Diners seated nearby sometimes caught sight of her from the corner of their eye only to find the stairwell empty upon a second glance. Staff members cleaning late at night reported hearing faint sobs or the creak of footsteps on the stairs, though no one else was around. Joseph Forepaugh himself was not immune to the whispers of haunting. While his death was tragically, Jen says he took his own life. After the affair and its fallout, the stories claim that his spirit also remained. Guests described glimpsing his shadow near the tall windows of the mansion, watching silently from a distance. Some claimed the air would grow heavy in certain rooms, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Others recounted the unsettling sensation of being watched while they dined, only to glance up and catch sight of a fleeting reflection of a man's figure in their wineglass or in a mirror across the room. The combination of these two restless spirits, the maid who died by her own hand and Joseph, whose torment seemed to anchor him to the place, turned Four Paws into more than a restaurant. It became a destination for those intrigued by the paranormal. Servers shared stories of lights flickering without cause and cold drafts that swept through rooms in the middle of summer. Plates and glasses occasionally shifted on their own, startling both staff and diners. One server claimed that while closing for the night, she saw a woman in period clothing standing at the top of the staircase, believing it to be part of a themed event or a guest who had wandered upstairs. She called out only for the figure to vanish in an instant. Some paranormal investigators visited Four Paws and attempted to capture evidence of the activity. They reported unusual EMF readings, sudden drops in temperature, and recordings that seemed to contain faint whispers or muffled voices. Photographs taken inside sometimes revealed orbs or streaks of light near the staircase and dining rooms. For believers, these were confirmations that the mansion's tragic history continued to play out long after the original inhabitants had gone. Diners themselves added to the lore. Romantic dinners in the dimly lit rooms were sometimes interrupted by the sudden appearance of shadows that seemed to be tricks of the candlelight. Couples reported feeling as though someone brushed past their table when the aisle was empty. A few even swore that their wine glasses rippled as though disturbed by a hand unseen. Despite its eerie reputation, Four Paws thrived for years as one of St. Paul's premier restaurants. The atmosphere, charming, yet tinged with mystery only, seemed to add to its allure. Guests came not only for the cuisine, but for the chance of encountering something beyond the ordinary. When the restaurant finally closed, the mansion itself remained. Though the doors no longer welcomed diners, locals believe the spirits have not departed. Passers-by have claimed to see faint figures in the windows at night, staring out toward the street. Others say the air around the mansion feels colder than the surrounding neighborhood, as though the house itself still remembers the tragedies that occurred within its walls. The legend of Four Paws endures because it is more than a ghost story, is a tale of human frailty and consequence. The choices of one man and the heartbreak of one woman intertwine to create a haunting that has lasted for generations. Even without the clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation, the mansion seems alive, holding tight to the memories of love, betrayal, despair, and death. Today, the Four Paws Mansion stands as a reminder that history is never entirely gone. Some say if you walk past on a quiet evening, you may hear the faint sobs of the maid echoing from the stairwell, or catch sight of Joseph's shadow lingering in the window. Though the restaurant has closed, the spirits are said to remain, ensuring that Four Paws will forever be known not just as an elegant dining establishment, but as one of St. Paul's most haunted landmarks. The Mounds Theater in St. Paul is a building rich in history, nostalgia, and lingering echoes of the past. First opening its doors in 1922, the theater was designed to be a grand neighborhood venue where the community could gather for vaudeville acts, silent films, and eventually the golden age of Hollywood cinema. Generations of families came to the Mounds for laughter, music, and entertainment. Yet, as the decades passed, its legacy became entangled not only with cherished memories, but also with chilling stories of the unexplained. Today, many believe the theater is not just a place where history lives, it's a place where it refuses to die. Like many historic theaters, the Mounds has seen its share of transformations. It began as a bustling movie house, later hosting live performances, and eventually became a hub for community events. But beneath the applause and the marquee lights, visitors and staff began reporting unsettling experiences. It wasn't just the creaks of an old building or the draft through century-old hallways. There was something else, something alive, in its own way. Within the walls, the first spirit most visitors encounter is that of a little girl, described as playful and sweet. She appears in the aisles or near the stage, often giggling and waving at startled guests. Some have heard her laughter echo through the empty theater when no children were present. Paranormal investigators attempting to record her voice have captured faint giggles on their devices, followed by the sound of small footsteps pattering across the wooden floors. Witnesses say she exudes no malice, just an eternal child's curiosity, tied forever to the joy of performance. But not every ghost in the Mounds feels so lighthearted. Patrons and staff often report the apparition of a soldier, clad in uniform, who appears in the aisles or seated in the audience. His expression is somber, his posture rigid, as if he's on guard even in death. Some speculate he may be tied to the theater's heyday during wartime, when soldiers frequented performances to lift their spirits before deployment. Others wonder if he is a spirit who returned after death, forever searching for solace in the place he once knew. Witnesses claim that when he appears, the air grows noticeably heavier, and an unshakable silence fills the space, as though the theater itself is pausing in reverence. Then there is the man in the fedora. Unlike the little girl or the soldier, his presence feels darker, more mysterious. Always described as wearing a suit and hat, his face often obscured, he lurks in the shadows of the aisles or balcony. Some who have encountered him report feeling dread, as though he watches with intent. Unlike the playful spirit of the girl, the man in the fedora never interacts directly, he simply observes, his energy unnerving. A few investigators believe he may have been tied to the theater's construction or management, while others think his story may be lost to history altogether. What is certain is that his presence lingers, unsettling, and unexplainable. Beyond individual apparitions, the Mounds Theater is filled with strange phenomena. Lights flicker during performances without technical cause. Actors have complained of sudden chills while on stage, as though invisible hands brushed against them. Audience members sometimes hear laughter or applause erupting from empty seats, as though the echoes of long-ago crowds remain alive in the building. More chilling still, there are reports of entire rooms growing icy cold, breath visible in the air despite warm temperatures outside. Perhaps the most disturbing evidence comes from electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs, captured by investigators. Time and again, recordings from the mounds reveal the same haunting phrase, "Stay with us." The words are often whispered, sometimes layered with multiple voices, and occasionally spoken with eerie clarity. Paranormal researchers believe this is no coincidence that the spirits within the theater are beckoning the living to remain, drawn into the eternal company of those who refuse to leave. For those who have worked in the mounds, the experiences are both thrilling and terrifying. Ushers have sworn they saw figures in the aisles long after the last guests departed. Performers rehearse under the watchful eyes of unseen presences, some claiming they feel almost as though they are sharing the stage with invisible co-stars. Local paranormal groups who've investigated the theater describe it as one of the most active locations in the state. They've documented cold spots, captured shadowy figures on camera, and recorded disembodied voices beyond the chilling refrain of "Stay with us." Some even believe that the mounds is a kind of spiritual magnet. Yet despite the fear its stories inspire, there's also something undeniably fascinating about the Mounds Theater's spectral legacy. For many, the ghosts are not menacing intruders, but part of the building's soul, reminders of its vibrant past and the lives forever tied to it. The little girl's laughter, the soldier's quiet strength, the man in the fedora's enigmatic presence. They weave together a tapestry of history that makes the theater more than bricks and wood. It is, in a sense, alive with the memories of those who once filled it. Visitors who walk through the doors of the mounds often leave with more than a ticket stub or a program. They leave with a story, sometimes a chill down the spine, sometimes the echo of a giggle, sometimes the unshakable feeling of being watched by eyes that cannot be seen. And for those who listen closely, perhaps even a whisper urging them not to leave, as the spirits of the Mounds Theater continue their eternal performance. The Landmark Center in St. Paul stands as one of the city's most beautiful and recognizable buildings. Its Romanesque revival architecture, a striking presence in Rice Park, built in the early 1900s. Its stately granite walls and arched windows were designed to impress. For decades, the Landmark Center served as a federal building, housing courtrooms, post offices, and various government offices. It was a place of business, law, and justice, but also a place where lives ended, reputations crumbled, and tragedies unfolded. That mix of history and heartbreak has given the Landmark Center a reputation for being one of Minnesota's most haunted locations. Walking through its grand halls today, with polished wood and soaring ceilings, it's hard to imagine the building's darker past. Yet, those who have spent long hours inside the Landmark Center say the echoes of that past remain alive, manifesting in whispers, apparitions, and strange sensations that defy explanation. What makes the Landmark Center unique is the contrast. By day, it may host a concert, a wedding, or a family outing. But beneath that elegance, something darker lingers just out of sight. The building's history is marked by trials of notorious criminals and gangsters. During its years as a federal courthouse, the Landmark Center was the stage for dramatic prosecutions tied to prohibition, organized crime, and even political corruption. These trials were not just tense. They were life-changing, sealing the fates of many men whose shadows may still stalk the corridors. Witnesses claim that, late at night, figures in old-fashioned suits appear in the stairwells, their expressions stern and burdened. Some believe these are the spirits of those who were tried and sentenced within the building. unable to move on from the walls that witnessed their downfall. Security guards working overnight shifts tell of disembodied footsteps echoing across the marble floors when no one else is inside. The sound is often steady, as though someone is pacing, restless and agitated. Sometimes the footsteps stop abruptly, only for the guard to feel an icy chill wash over them. One guard claimed that he once followed the sound into a corridor, only to see a shadowy figure glide across the hall and vanish through a solid wall. Among the building's eeriest tales is that of the phantom typewriters. During the years when the Landmark Center was still filled with offices, typewriters were a constant sound, clicking and clattering as clerks and stenographers worked. Though those machines are long gone, the sound of typing is still heard in empty rooms. Visitors on guided tours have reported hearing the rhythmic tapping of keys, even when the rooms were bare and silent. Paranormal investigators who recorded these sounds have captured faint audio evidence of the clacking, proof, perhaps, that some part of the past continues to play itself out over and over. But the most infamous spirit of the Landmark Center is tied to a tragic suicide. According to records, a man leaped to his death from the 5th floor, falling into the atrium below. His death was sudden and shocking, leaving behind a stain on the building's history that cannot be erased. Visitors who pass by that area often describe an overwhelming sense of despair. Some grow nauseous, others feel sudden dizziness or tightness in their chest, as if their bodies are reliving the terror of the man's final moments. A few have even claimed to see a fleeting figure near the railings, staring down as if preparing to jump again, caught in an endless loop of sorrow. For those who work inside the Landmark Center, these occurrences have become part of the building's identity. Custodians tell stories of lights flickering in hallways, doors that open and close on their own, and elevators that move between floors without being summoned. Staff have felt invisible hands brush against their shoulders or tug at their clothing. Musicians who rehearse in the building's performance spaces sometimes complain of feeling watched, as though unseen eyes follow their every move. One wedding photographer swore that an extra figure appeared in her shot, a man in an outdated suit, standing just behind the bridal party, only to vanish in the next frame. Perhaps what makes the Landmark Center so compelling as a haunted site is that its activity seems less about random ghosts and more about the building itself. It has soaked in decades of human emotion, fear, desperation, sorrow, and anger. Every trial held there, every guilty verdict read aloud, every life ruined or ended has left its mark. The very walls seem to remember, holding those energies within them, like a recording that never stops playing. Visitors who come for concerts or community events often find themselves distracted by strange sensations. Goosebumps rise suddenly, even in warm rooms. Whispers echo faintly near the stairwells, words too soft to understand. Some guests say they catch movement in their peripheral vision, as though someone in a dark suit just turned the corner, yet when they look, no one is there. One chilling account involved a woman attending a recital who felt a crushing sadness descend on her during intermission. She had no idea why, but later learned she had been standing directly beneath the 5th floor balcony where the man had jumped. Over time, the Landmark Center has embraced its haunted reputation. Ghost tours bring curious visitors through its echoing halls, and paranormal investigators set up equipment to document what lingers. Nearly all leave us something: a strange photo, a recording, or simply an experience they cannot explain. For skeptics, the stories may be brushed aside as imagination. But for those who've felt the despair near the 5th floor, or heard the phantom typewriters at night, there's little doubt that the Landmark Center holds more than history. It is a place where beauty and tragedy intertwine, where the elegance of its design is haunted by the weight of its past. Guests arrive to celebrate love, art, and community, but they often leave with goosebumps and the lingering question of whether they were truly alone. At the Landmark Center, the answer seems clear. The living may walk its halls by day, but at night, the ghosts of history rise to pace the marble floors once again. The Anoka State Hospital, sometimes called the Anoka Asylum, carries with it a chilling reputation that extends far beyond its crumbling walls and overgrown grounds. Built in 1900, to serve as a treatment facility for the mentally ill. It was intended to provide care and structure for those who had nowhere else to turn. But like many institutions of its era, what began as a place of healing quickly became synonymous with pain, fear, and despair. Today, the hospital no longer serves its original purpose, but its reputation as one of Minnesota's most haunted places ensures that its name is never forgotten. The architecture alone sets the tone, with looming brick buildings and underground tunnels connecting the various wings. The hospital looks every bit the Gothic asylum one might imagine from a horror story. Long corridors stretch into darkness, lined with peeling paint, shattered windows, and rusting fixtures. Even in the daytime, a heavy silence seems to settle over the grounds, as though the air itself remembers the suffering that took place here. Visitors often describe the atmosphere as suffocating, a pressure in the chest that builds the longer one stays. Paranormal investigators frequently remark that Anoka State Hospital doesn't just seem haunted, it feels hostile. The facility's history is steeped in tragedy. At its peak, the hospital housed hundreds of patients, many of whom were subjected to harsh treatments that today would be considered cruel and inhumane. Electroshock therapy, isolation, and other experimental procedures were not uncommon. Overcrowding worsened the conditions, and staff were often stretched thin, leaving many patients neglected. Records suggest that those who died at the hospital and went unclaimed by family were buried in unmarked graves on the property. To this day, no one knows exactly how many forgotten souls lie beneath the soil. This dark legacy is believed by many to explain the overwhelming paranormal activity tied to the site. Explorers who venture into the abandoned wings often report screams echoing through the halls, long, anguished cries that send chills through even the bravest. Some say the sounds come from nowhere and everywhere at once, as though the very walls themselves are crying out. Others hear banging doors in empty corridors, footsteps trailing just behind them, or whispers that grow louder when they stop to listen. In the underground tunnels, where patients were once transported between buildings away from the public eye, shadowy figures are a common sight. Witnesses describe them as human-like shapes, darker than the surrounding darkness, gliding silently just out of reach. One of the most frequently reported apparitions is that of ghostly nurses, still making their rounds decades after the hospital shut down. Witnesses claim to see them pushing carts down the halls, their forms pale and translucent, their movements eerily mechanical. Sometimes the squeak of cartwheels can be heard long before the figure appears, only for it to vanish the moment it reaches a corner. Paranormal investigators have even captured faint audio of a woman's voice calling out in a stern, clinical tone, as though still giving orders in a ward long since abandoned. Then there are the patients themselves. Countless stories describe encounters with figures in tattered hospital gowns, wandering the grounds with vacant stares. Some appear lost, confused, or silently weeping, while others are said to lash out, rushing toward intruders before dissolving into thin air. One chilling report came from a group of urban explorers who claimed to have seen a man crouched in the corner of a room, his body shaking as though sobbing. When they tried to approach, he looked up, revealing hollow, blackened eyes, before vanishing into nothing. AVP sessions conducted in a hospital often yield disturbing results. Investigators have captured voices that scream, "Help me," or "Get out," sometimes overlapping with bursts of static or loud bangs. In one recording, a low guttural laugh was heard after a question was asked, chilling everyone present. Some claim the spirits here are not just restless, but actively hostile toward outsiders, warning them away from sacred ground that should not be disturbed. Even those who avoid going inside the buildings report experiences on the grounds. The cemetery where unclaimed patients were buried is said to be particularly active. Visitors feel sudden chills, hear rustling footsteps in the grass, or sense the weight of unseen eyes watching them. One visitor claimed that, as they walked past the cemetery, their flashlight flickered and died, only to restart after they left the area. Another described a feeling of overwhelming sadness and despair, so intense that they broke down crying without knowing why. The oppressive energy of the Anoka State Hospital lingers long after leaving. People who've visited often describe strange occurrences at home, explained knocks, shadow figures in their periphery, or unsettling dreams filled with screaming voices. Paranormal experts suggest that the spirits here may be so strong, so desperate, that they attach themselves to visitors, following them beyond the hospital walls. Skeptics may dismiss these stories as the product of overactive imaginations, fueled by the hospital's grim reputation. But for those who've walked its halls, heard its screams, or seen its shadowy figures firsthand, there is no doubt that something remains. The hospital may no longer house the living, but its past inhabitants seem unwilling or unable to leave. The Anoka State Hospital is more than just an abandoned asylum. It is a monument to suffering, a reminder of how the vulnerable were once treated, and perhaps a warning of what happens when pain is ignored rather than healed. Every scream in the dark, every flickering shadow, every icy gust of air feels like a message carried forward by the thousands who once lived and died within its walls. For those who dare to visit, the hospital offers more than a glimpse into history. It offers an encounter with the restless dead, whose presence lingers in every corner, every corridor, every unmarked grave. And whether those spirits cry out for help, justice, or vengeance, one thing is certain. The Anoka State Hospital remains one of the most chilling places in all of Minnesota. The Fergus Falls State Hospital in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, stands as one of the most imposing and unforgettable structures in the state. Built in 1890, it was designed in the Grand Kirkbride style, a blueprint popular for mental institutions of the era. These massive, fortress-like buildings were intended to combine architectural beauty with the belief that an orderly environment could promote healing. But while the sprawling hospital, with its turrets and wings, looks like a castle from the outside, its history is much darker. The walls of Fergus Falls are heavy with stories of pain, despair, and death, and many say those emotions linger in the form of restless spirits. At its height, the hospital housed thousands of patients. Many were admitted for conditions that today would not warrant institutionalization, depression, anxiety, or behavior considered abnormal by the standards of the time. Treatments were harsh and often experimental. Electroshock therapy, hydrotherapy, and long periods of isolation were common. As decades passed, overcrowding worsened, and the hospital became a place of suffering rather than healing. For many patients, Fergus Falls was not a place to recover, but the last stop in their lives. The building officially closed in 2005, but its legend only grew. With its empty halls, broken windows, and peeling paint, the hospital exudes an atmosphere of abandonment that draws explorers, photographers, and paranormal investigators alike. And almost everyone who ventures inside comes back with a story. Footsteps are among the most common reports. Long after the building was vacated, visitors still hear the sound of shoes clicking on tile floors or boots pacing in echoing corridors. Sometimes the steps approach, growing louder until they seem only a few feet away, yet no one is there. Voices are also a regular occurrence: disembodied murmurs in empty rooms, faint cries in the stairwells, or even clear words caught on recordings. One paranormal group reported capturing the phrase, "Don't leave me," whispered in a desperate tone during an investigation of the upper floors. But perhaps the most unnerving stories are of physical encounters. Many visitors describe feeling pushed, brushed, or even grabbed by unseen hands. One former security guard claimed that while checking the building at night, something shoved him hard enough that he stumbled into a wall. He quit soon after, convinced the hospital was far from empty. Another explorer recounted the sensation of icy fingers gripping their wrist as they reached for a doorknob. Startled, they pulled back, only to find a faint red mark on their skin that lingered for hours. The most famous apparition tied to Fergus Falls is a woman in white. She is often seen drifting silently through the upper floors, her face pale and sorrowful, her gown trailing like mist behind her. Some believe she was a patient who died tragically, perhaps by suicide, perhaps neglected during a time of overcrowding. Witnesses describe her as both beautiful and deeply unsettling. appearing suddenly in doorways or at the end of long corridors before vanishing without a sound. Paranormal investigators who've encountered her often report feeling overwhelming sadness in her presence, as though her grief still clings to the building. Strange lights are also frequently spotted. Passers-by, at night sometimes, see glowing orbs in the windows, even though the hospital has no electricity running. Some lights flicker like lanterns moving through the halls, while others shine steadily as if a room were lit from within. When investigators enter the building to track them down, they find nothing but darkness. The hospital's tunnels, which once connected different wings and allowed staff to move patients unseen, are among the most active areas. Echoes of shuffling feet, moans, and even the metallic clanging of unseen equipment have been reported there. Many investigators avoid the tunnels altogether, citing the oppressive energy that seems to grow heavier the deeper one goes. One visitor claimed they heard a low, guttural growl in the darkness, so menacing that they fled the building immediately and never returned. It is not just inside the hospital where strange activity occurs. The grounds themselves carry an eerie energy. The cemetery, where unclaimed patients were buried, is marked by rows of simple headstones, many without names. Visitors report feeling sudden chills there, even on warm days. Some say they hear faint crying carried on the wind, or see shadowy figures darting between the trees. Paranormal groups often describe the cemetery as the heart of the hospital's lingering sadness. Despite the frightening tales, Fergus Falls has become a pilgrimage site for ghost hunters. Investigators travel from across the country to experience the hospital's paranormal energy. Many leave convinced that the building holds not just echoes of the past, but active spirits still tied to their final home. Some speculate that the sheer scale of suffering, the thousands of lives marked by despair, printed itself on the walls, ensuring that Fergus Falls would never truly rest. For locals, the hospital is a complicated landmark. Its castle-like architecture is admired, and efforts have been made to preserve parts of the structure, but the shadow of its history is impossible to ignore. Families with loved ones once confined there often speak in hushed tones, reluctant to revisit the past. And yet, the stories persist, growing with each new report of footsteps in an empty corridor or a pale figure glimpsed in a window at night. The Fergus Falls State Hospital is more than an abandoned asylum. It is a monument to a time when society misunderstood mental illness, when treatment often meant punishment, and when countless souls were lost to neglect and pain. Whether the spirits here are seeking justice, peace, or simply recognition, one thing is clear: the hospital is not silent. It still speaks through the whispers, the footsteps, and the woman in white who wanders the upper floors, her sorrow echoing across the decades. For those who dare to visit, the hospital offers a glimpse not just into history, but into the lingering presence of those who could never leave. The Nopming Sanatorium sits just outside Duluth, Minnesota, its massive structure rising from the trees like a grim monument to suffering. When it opened in 1912, it was built to combat one of the deadliest illnesses of its time, tuberculosis. Known then as the White Plague, tuberculosis ravaged communities across the country, and sanatoriums like Nopming were seen as places of healing. With fresh air, sunlight, and isolation, doctors hoped to give patients a chance at survival. But for thousands who came through Nopming's doors, it became less a place of recovery and more a place to die. The building was state-of-the-art for its day, with long sun porches, wide windows, and wings designed to keep patients separated. For a while, it gave hope to those afflicted, many of whom were young. But the disease was merciless. Over the decades, thousands of patients perished within those walls, and their suffering etched itself into the very foundation of the sanatorium. Nurses and doctors witnessed heartbreaking scenes: children wasting away, families saying their final goodbyes, patients coughing their last breaths. Even after tuberculosis waned, Nopming continued to operate as a nursing home and care facility until its final closure in the early 2000s. By then, the once proud institution had deteriorated, its reputation overshadowed by decades of death and whispers of the supernatural. Today, the sanatorium sits abandoned, its windows broken, its hallways dark and decayed. But many say it is far from empty. Paranormal investigators, urban explorers, and curious locals all tell stories of strange encounters. The most common are the sounds echoes of coughs and wheezing that drift through empty rooms. Visitors describe hearing the labored breathing of patients long gone, as if the very air still remembers the sickness. Cold spots are another recurring phenomenon. Explorers report walking through hallways only to feel sudden blasts of icy air, even in the height of summer. Some say these cold spots seem to follow them, almost as if unseen entities are keeping pace. It is not unusual for groups to break into nervous laughter, only to fall silent when the temperature shifts around them again. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed in doorways or at the ends of long corridors. Witnesses describe them as fleeting, barely visible out of the corner of the eye, but distinct enough to make hearts race. In some cases, the shadows linger, watching before dissolving into the dark. One group of investigators swore they saw the silhouette of a nurse in old-fashioned attire step into a doorway, stand for a moment, and then vanish. When they checked the room, it was completely empty. Electronic voice phenomena, VPs, are frequently captured at Nopming. Recordings often pick up faint voices when no one is speaking. The most famous comes from a paranormal team that asked aloud, "Do you need help?" The response was chilling, a raspy voice whispering, "Help me." Others have caught moans, cries, and even a desperate, drawn-out cough. These disembodied voices suggest that some of Nopming's former patients may still be calling out from the other side, forever trapped in their suffering. Locals tell of seeing lights in the windows at night, despite the building having no power. Sometimes it's a single light, glowing as though from a bedside lamp. Other times it flickers like candles in multiple rooms. Brave souls who attempt to investigate often find the building empty and dark once they approach, the lights vanishing as mysteriously as they appeared. But perhaps the most unsettling belief about Nopming is that it doesn't just haunt its halls. Some claim that once you step inside, the spirits follow you home. Visitors have described weeks of strange occurrences after exploring the sanatorium objects, moving on their own. Unexplained knocking, nightmares filled with wheezing figures, even the sensation of someone sitting on the edge of their bed. One woman, after a brief tour, said she woke up night after night to the sound of coughing in her bedroom, though no one else was there. For paranormal enthusiasts, Nopming has become a hotspot, a place where activity seems undeniable. Investigators leave with countless recordings, photos of unexplained figures, and personal experiences that shake even the most skeptical. Yet the building's atmosphere alone is enough to chill anyone. The peeling paint, the broken furniture, the long hallways lined with rusting bed frames, all of it speaks of a place where life ended far too often. The heavy energy of grief and sickness seems soaked into every wall. Stories from former staff members add to the mystery. Some nurses who worked there in its later years claimed they often felt watched while on night shifts. Others reported hearing footsteps echo through empty wings. One caretaker, assigned to keep an eye on the building after it closed, lasted only a few nights before refusing to return, claiming that voices whispered to him in the dark. The Nopming Sanatorium remains one of Minnesota's most notorious haunted sites. Its history impossible to separate from its ghostly reputation. It is a place where thousands faced the cruel reality of tuberculosis, and where death was a daily visitor. Whether the spirits still linger in search of peace, or whether the energy of so much suffering has simply imprinted itself on the walls. One thing is certain, Nopming is not silent. Washington Street Bridge, Minneapolis. The Washington Street Bridge, connecting the University of Minnesota campus, has a tragic reputation. Over the years, it has been the site of many suicides, and some believe the spirits linger. Students walking across at night often feel sudden despair or hear whispers urging them to jump. Others report seeing shadowy figures standing on the edge, only to vanish when approached. On foggy nights, some claim to see glowing orbs hovering above the water below. Weaver Bottoms in Wabasha County, Minnesota, is a place of striking natural beauty by day. The wetlands stretch across thousands of acres, teeming with birds, fish, and wildlife. Hunters and birdwatchers flock to the area, and canoeists glide across the calm waters, marveling at the serenity. But when night falls, the wetlands transform. The lively chatter of wildlife dies away, and an unsettling silence blankets the marsh. It is then that Weaver Bottoms reveals its darker side, steeped in legends of spirits and strange occurrences that have unnerved visitors for generations. Stories of unexplained lights are among the most common. Hunters and campers tell of glowing orbs drifting across the water, bobbing like lanterns carried by unseen hands. Sometimes they appear as a single light, swaying slowly as if someone were searching for something. Other times, multiple lights move together, weaving in and out of the mist before fading into the night. Witnesses often describe the lights as unnerving to controlled and purposeful to be natural phenomena. Many locals believe these ghostly lanterns belong to the spirits of drowned travelers and fishermen, forever doomed to wander the marsh in search of a way home. The wetlands have always been treacherous. Stories passed down through the years tell of people lost in the fog, swallowed by the waters, and never found again. Fishermen capsized by sudden storms, hunters who wandered into the bog and never returned. Weaver Bottoms has claimed more than its share of lives. Some say these restless souls now linger, their presence marked by the eerie lights that flicker across the marsh like phantom beacons. Beyond the lights, visitors report chilling sounds carried on the winds. Screams, faint at first, rise from the darkness and echo across the still waters. Some describe the cries as panicked, like people struggling for their lives. Others say they are mournful, drawn-out wails of sorrow. Campers have fled the area after hearing these cries grow closer, claiming the sound seemed to circle their tents before fading into silence. Skeptics might dismiss the noises as wind or the calls of nocturnal animals, but those who have heard them swear there is something unmistakably human in those screams. Mist is another element of Weaver Bottom's haunting. The wetlands are often shrouded in fog that rolls in suddenly, cloaking the marsh in a ghostly veil. Within this mist, figures are said to appear. Hunters tell of seeing silhouettes rise from the water's shapeless forms that stand motionless before dissolving back into the fog. Fishermen describe glimpsing people walking across the marsh as if on solid ground, only to vanish when approached. One chilling account comes from a camper who awoke in the night to see a figure standing near his tent. At first, he thought it was another camper, but as the mist shifted, the figure dissolved into thin air. The man left the campsite before dawn, vowing never to return. Local lore ties many of these hauntings to the area's long history. The Mississippi River has always been a lifeline, drawing Native American tribes, early settlers, and traders. But it was also perilous. Stories tell of native warriors ambushed near the marsh, their spirits forever bound to the place of their death. Others speak of pioneers who drowned trying to cross the wetlands with wagons, their families left to grieve on the riverbanks. Each tragic death, locals believe, left an imprint on Weaver Bottoms, filling the marsh with restless energy. Hunters often recount unnerving experiences. Some say they feel watched as they move through the marsh at dawn, the hairs on their neck prickling with unseen eyes. Others tell of sudden drops in temperature, as though a cold hand brushed past them. A few hunters have even abandoned trips mid-season, claiming the wetlands seemed alive, the silence pressing in on them until they could no longer bear it. Fishermen share similar stories. Many describe hearing splashes that sound like someone falling into the water, only to find nothing there when they investigate. Others report voices calling faintly across the marsh, though no other boats are in sight. One fisherman told of feeling his boat rock as if someone climbed aboard, yet he was alone in the middle of the wetland. When he turned to look, he saw only rippling water and the glow of a phantom light drifting away into the mist. Over the years, paranormal investigators have tried to capture evidence of Weaver Bottom's mysteries. Some claim to have recorded faint voices on audio equipment pleas for help, whispers of names, or simply anguished cries. Others report batteries draining rapidly, cameras malfunctioning, or lights appearing in the distance that left no trace when approached. Many leave with a sense of unease, convinced the wetlands hold secrets not easily explained. For locals, Weaver Bottoms remains a place of caution. By day, it is beautiful, a haven for wildlife and outdoor enthusiasts. But at night, it belongs to something else, something older, darker, and deeply unsettling. The strange lights, the screams on the wind, the ghostly figures rising from the mist all speak to a place where the line between the living and the dead is perilously thin. Those who brave the wetlands after sunset often return with stories that defy reason, and though some may dismiss them as tricks of the light, echoes of animals, or the imagination running wild, others believe that Weaver Bottoms carries the weight of centuries of tragedy. To step into the marsh at night is to step into a place where time seems suspended, where spirits may still wander, and where the beauty of the land is inseparable from its chilling mystery. The old Ramsey County Jail in St. Paul sits dark and silent now, its doors locked and its cells empty. From the outside, the structure looks like just another relic of the city's past, a cold building left to time. But ask anyone who has stepped inside after the jail's closure, and they'll tell you it is far from empty. The halls echo not with silence, but with the restless energy of decades of suffering, violence, and despair. For years, the jail housed criminals, ranging from petty thieves to hardened offenders. Within its walls, countless stories unfolded: fights, breakdowns, and moments of hopelessness. Some prisoners never left alive, their lives ending behind the heavy steel doors. Guards who worked there spoke of the toll the place took not only on the inmates, but on themselves, the weight of misery pressing on everyone inside. When the jail finally shut down, one might expect that energy to fade with time, but many say it never did. Visitors report hearing voices echoing through the empty cells, conversations that seem to come from nowhere. Some are faint, like whispers carried on the wind, while others sound loud and near, as though two men are speaking just around the corner. Investigators who have brought recording equipment into the jail claim to have captured clear responses to their questions: raspy voices saying things like "get out" or "help me." Skeptics might dismiss these as tricks of sound, but the consistency of the reports suggests otherwise. Chains rattling is another common occurrence. Even though the jail has been cleared, the sound of metal clinking against metal echoes through the corridors. Guards once used heavy chains to restrain dangerous inmates, and some believe the sound is a residual imprint of that past, an endless replay of moments when prisoners fought against their restraints. Others say it is more direct, that spirits are still bound within the jail, their presence announced by the clinking chains they once despised. Apparitions are reported most often in the cell. Shadowy figures appear, pacing the rows, walking back and forth, as though still confined. Some visitors describe seeing men gripping the bars, staring out with hollow eyes before vanishing into thin air. In certain cells, the air feels thicker, heavier, as though the room itself remembers the desperation of its past occupants. Cold spots linger in solitary confinement, a place where inmates endured some of the harshest conditions. Those who enter describe an overwhelming feeling of dread, a sense of being watched, and the sudden, sharp drop in temperature that clings no matter how warm the day outside. Solitary confinement is particularly notorious. The cells were small, dark, and isolating places that could break even the strongest will. Guards recounted how some inmates screamed for hours, pounded on the walls, or fell into eerie silence that lasted for days. Today, people who step inside often report hearing those same screams echoing faintly in the distance. Paranormal investigators have captured knocks and bangs on the cell doors, even when no one else was inside. Some visitors claim they've felt hands brush against them or tug at their clothing, as though desperate spirits still reach out for human contact. The jail's reputation is not just one of ghost stories, it's tied to the building's very energy. Paranormal researchers describe it as a classic case of residual haunting, where the emotions and traumas of the past are imprinted on the space. Decades of rage, violence, and despair seem to have soaked into the walls, replaying themselves like a record stuck on repeat. Yet others argue that something more intelligent lingers in the jail. The responses captured on EVP recordings, the intelligent knocks, and the feelings of being directly watched suggest that some of the former inmates never left. Their spirits trapped within the cold, concrete structure. Former guards, even those skeptical of the paranormal, admit that the place carried a heaviness unlike anywhere else. Some refused to walk the corridors alone during the night shift, convinced that someone unseen followed them. Others recalled hearing cell doors slam shut, even though the blocks were empty. A few spoke of seeing figures at the end of long hallways, figures that disappeared the moment they approached. Even now, long after its closure, the jail's reputation draws ghost hunters and thrill seekers. Many leave shaken, swearing the atmosphere inside is suffocating. They describe the air as thick, charged with something they cannot explain. Some leave with scratches or unexplained bruises, convinced they were touched by something not of this world. For others, the fear comes not from what they see or hear, but from what they feel, the inescapable impression that the building itself is alive with sorrow and rage. The jail stands as a grim reminder of the lives once held within its walls. Though it no longer houses prisoners, its cells are far from empty. The echoes of despair, the rattle of chains, and the fleeting apparitions of men who once walked its halls ensured that the Ramsey County Jail remains one of the most haunted places in the Twin Cities. For those brave enough to step inside, it offers not just a glimpse into history, but a chilling brush with the restless dead, who seem unwilling or unable to leave the place they once called their prison. The Calumet Inn in Pipestone, Minnesota, stands as both a jewel of history and a haven for the unexplained. Built in 1888, the inn has welcomed travelers for well over a century. Its stone facade and vintage charm echoing an earlier time. Guests today are drawn by its historic character, but many leave with more than fond memories. They leave with chilling stories of ghostly encounters that blur the line between past and present. The inn's long history is layered with the lives of those who passed through its doors. Salesmen, farmers, weary travelers, and local townsfolk once filled its lobby, dining room, and guest rooms. The building has endured fires, renovations, and changes of ownership, but through it all, it has never lost its reputation as a place that hums with energy. Some say the energy is simply the weight of history, but others insist it's the restless presence of spirits who never left. One of the most well-known legends centers around the basement boiler room. In the early 20th century, a man believed to be an employee of the inn lost his life there in a tragic accident. The details vary depending on who tells the story. Some say he was burned in an explosion, others that he succumbed to carbon monoxide poisoning. Whatever the truth, his spirit is said to linger in that shadowy basement. Guests and staff who venture down report loud bangs on the pipes, echoing thuds that seem to come from nowhere. Others describe the unsettling sensation of being watched, the air heavy and oppressive, as if the man's final moments are replaying endlessly. Paranormal investigators have even captured recordings of what sounds like faint moaning or muffled cries in the boiler room, lending weight to the tales. But the basement is only part of the story. Guests throughout the inn speak of strange disturbances in their rooms. Lights turn on and off by themselves, flickering in patterns that seem almost intentional. Televisions change channels as if an unseen hand holds the remote. Some visitors have returned to their rooms to find personal belongings moved from where they left them. Others claim the doors of wardrobes or drawers open on their own. At first, these incidents are brushed off as quirks of an old building, but when they happen again and again, often in the presence of multiple witnesses, it becomes harder to explain them away. Footsteps are another constant. The sound of heavy boots pacing down the hallways echoes in the stillness of night. Guests get up to investigate, only to find the corridor empty. Sometimes the footsteps stop right outside a room door, as though someone is standing silently on the other side. A few guests have reported opening their door, only to catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure vanishing into thin air. The inn is also known for its apparitions, ghostly figures that drift through its historic rooms. One of the most frequent sightings is that of women in period clothing, long skirts brushing the floor as they move silently across the lobby or dining room. Witnesses describe them as solid at first glance, only realizing they are seeing something unusual when the figures fade into nothingness. Some speculate these are the spirits of former guests who loved the inn so much they never left. Others believe they may have been townsfolk tied to the building during its early days, their presence stitched permanently into its fabric. There are also stories of a woman appearing in the upstairs hallways, her expression sad and weary. Some claim she was a guest who passed away in one of the rooms, while others whisper she may have been tied to the town's darker history of hardship and loss. Whatever her origins, those who see her describe an overwhelming sense of melancholy, as though her spirit carries the weight of unfinished business. The Calumet Inn's paranormal reputation has drawn the attention of ghost hunters, psychics, and curious travelers alike. Many come skeptical and leave convinced something lingers there. Paranormal teams have reported unexplained cold spots, sudden drops in temperature, even on warm summer nights, and electronic equipment picking up strange anomalies. EVP's electronic voice phenomena, a common result of their investigations, with recordings capturing faint voices, answering questions, or calling out words no one present had spoken. Yet despite its haunted reputation, the inn remains a welcoming place. Guests continue to check in, drawn by its history, its charm, and yes, even its ghosts. For some, the possibility of encountering something unexplainable is part of the adventure. The stories told in its lobby and around town have become part of Pipestone's identity, turning the Calumet Inn into more than just a hotel. It's a living legend. Perhaps what makes the Calumet Inn so compelling is the way its paranormal side blends seamlessly with its history. It is not just a place where strange things happen, it is a place where the past feels alive, as though the walls themselves are unwilling to let go of the people who once filled them. Each creak of the floorboards, each flicker of a light, feels like a whisper from another time, and for those who stay, the experience is never quite the same. Some leave with only fond memories of good food and comfortable beds, while others depart with stories they will tell for the rest of their lives. Stories of footsteps in empty hallways, voices in the dark, and figures that vanish when you look twice. Winona State University, nestled in the heart of the Mississippi River Valley, carries all the vibrancy of a bustling college campus. Students fill its lecture halls, dormitories, and commons, their voices and footsteps a steady hum of youthful energy. Yet beneath the daily rhythm of campus life lies something older, stranger, unseen presence woven into the university's very foundations. Over the years, countless students and even staff have whispered the same unsettling truth. Winona State is haunted. Like many historic colleges, the university's age alone invites ghost stories. Buildings have stood for decades, holding within their walls the laughter, struggles, and sorrows of generations. What sets Winona apart, however, is the sheer consistency of its reports. Year after year, new students, many unaware of the legends, describe the same eerie encounters as those who came before them. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is the sound of phantom footsteps echoing through the dormitory halls. At night, when the building quiets and most students are asleep, those still awake hear heavy steps pacing back and forth outside their doors. Some describe them as slow and deliberate, as though someone is keeping watch. Others say the steps are hurried, uneven, as if whoever makes them is panicked or searching desperately for something. When residents open their doors to investigate, the hallway is always empty. The sound, however, resumes the moment the door closes again. Doors also have a habit of slamming on their own, rattling in their frames with startling force. Students have grown accustomed to the phenomenon, often joking about it during the day, but in the dead of night, when a door suddenly bangs shut in a silent corridor, laughter gives way to unease. Some have even reported seeing the handles move on their own, as though an unseen hand is testing the locks. Lecture halls, to carry their share of mysteries. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed at the edges of vision, dark shapes, sitting in the back rows or standing near the lecterns. Professors, preparing their lessons late at night, have admitted to feeling watched, the hairs on their neck rising as they sense someone in the room with them. On more than one occasion, an instructor has sworn they saw a figure in the corner, only for it to vanish when the lights were turned fully on. But perhaps the most chilling tales come from a particular dormitory. One said to be haunted by the spirit of a former student who died tragically. The details of the story differ depending on who tells it. Some say it was the result of an accident. Whatever the truth, students who live there claim her presence is undeniable. Residents often describe waking in the middle of the night to find a figure standing at the foot of their bed. She does not speak, nor does she move, but her silhouette is clear against the dim light filtering in through the windows. Within seconds, she fades into the air, leaving behind a room so cold it chills to the bone. Others hear whispers near their ears as they drift to sleep, soft voices that vanish the moment they open their eyes. Some students report losing objects, only to find them days later in strange places, as though someone or something had been playing tricks on them. A few even claim to have felt a gentle tug on their blankets, or the unmistakable weight of someone sitting on the edge of their bed when no one is there. These stories might be dismissed as typical campus folklore, the product of overactive imaginations in an old building, if not for the fact that faculty members have also reported unsettling experiences. Professors, many of whom spend long hours working late, speak of lights flickering in empty rooms, doors that lock themselves, and the persistent feeling of being followed. One professor, returning to his office after a lecture, swore he saw a young woman standing at the end of the hallway. When he called out to her, she turned the corner. He followed immediately, but the hall was empty, every door locked, every room dark. Paranormal investigators who have visited the campus describe an atmosphere heavy with residual energy. Cold spots linger in certain stairwells and corridors, and electronic devices often malfunction without explanation. Some teams have captured faint voices on their recorder's whispers, repeating single words like help, stay, or listen. The legends have become part of Winona State's identity, passed down from class to class. For new students, they read a mix of warning and initiation, a rite of passage to share ghost stories in the dorms late at night, half laughing, half shivering at every creak of the building. For others, the stories are far more personal. Many alumni recall encounters so vivid they remain etched in memory decades later. Skeptics argue the hauntings are simply a blend of drafty old buildings, restless young minds, and the power of suggestion. Yet those who have experienced the phenomena firsthand often come away with a different perspective. It isn't just the footsteps, or the slamming doors, or even the figures at the end of the bed. It's the unmistakable feeling that the university holds more than just its living students. Winona State University remains a place of learning, growth, and community, but it is also, undeniably, a place where history has left its mark in ways that defy explanation. For every diploma handed out, for every new generation of students, the ghosts remain a silent, unseen part of campus life. And while the living come and go, the spirits, it seems, have chosen to stay. Historic Calumet Ghost Town in Itasca County stands as a solemn monument to Minnesota's mining past. Once a thriving settlement fueled by iron ore, the town flourished in the late 1800s. Miners and their families built homes, schools, and businesses along the rugged landscape, forming a close-knit community devoted to their work. Life was difficult, but predictable, dictated by the cycles of mining operations and the harsh northern winters. Yet beneath the surface, danger was ever present. Accidents were common, and the unforgiving terrain claimed lives unexpectedly. When the mines closed due to economic decline and resource depletion, the town emptied, leaving behind crumbling structures and shattered dreams. Today, only the remnants of Calumet remain. Weathered foundations, rusted tools, and the skeletal remains of mining shafts. Visitors to the area often describe a haunting atmosphere, as if the memories of those who lived and died here are embedded in the very soil. Some claim the town's former residents never truly departed, their spirits lingering among the ruins. Locals tell tales of miners walking along the old paths at dusk, their figures appearing briefly before vanishing into the trees. Hikers report seeing shadowy forms moving near the collapsed shafts, or catching glimpses of lantern-like lights bobbing in the distance. These sightings are fleeting and mysterious, leaving witnesses questioning whether what they saw was real or simply the imagination, brought alive by the isolation and silence of the abandoned town. The mine shafts themselves hold the most unsettling stories. Long after the mines closed, people claimed to hear sounds echoing from the depths, the metallic clang of pickaxes, shouts, or groans that seem impossibly human. Some insist these are the echoes of miners trapped forever in the earth, their spirits unable to leave the site of their labor and death. Paranormal investigators have attempted to document these phenomena, recording faint voices that seem to call out names or issue warnings. Footsteps echoing along the shafts, despite no human presence, add to the sense that the past is pressing back into the present. Among the ruins, specific areas are notorious for supernatural activity. The remains of the old boarding house, where miners once lived in cramped quarters, are said to be a hotspot for sightings. People walking through the debris have felt sudden drops in temperature, heard whispers in empty rooms, and even seen figures sitting silently among the fallen beams. Some describe the sense of being watched, the invisible eyes of former residents following their every movement. Shadows stretch unnaturally along the walls at sunset, and occasionally a faint outline of a miner with a lantern is reported at the edge of the property, disappearing as soon as the witness focuses on it. Children and teenagers who dare to explore Calumet at night are especially likely to recount strange experiences. Some claim to have been touched lightly on the shoulder by unseen hands, while others speak of hearing someone calling their names through the darkness. A few report feeling a sudden, inexplicable dread, as if the town itself were aware of their intrusion. Stories of fleeting, apparitions miners, women, or even children are consistent, suggesting a tapestry of spectral lives still woven into the abandoned town. Sightings are not limited to people who wander the area after dark. Photographs taken during the day sometimes reveal unexplained shadows or light anomalies, and recordings occasionally capture strange sounds that cannot be traced to natural causes. Paranormal enthusiasts and ghost hunters have documented a range of phenomena, from moving objects to faint, indistinct whispers. Some visitors, drawn by curiosity or a desire for adventure, leave with a profound sense that they were not alone, as if the town itself had acknowledged their presence and was communicating in its own cryptic way. Despite the eerie experiences reported, Calumet Ghost Town continues to draw visitors, historians, and ghost enthusiasts alike. For some, it is a window into the past, a tangible reminder of the hardships and perseverance of those who built the town and worked the mines. For others, it is a place where the veil between the living and the dead seems exceptionally thin. The ruins are more than abandoned structures. They are markers of stories left unfinished, tragedies unforgotten, and lives that refuse to fade completely. Even the natural environment contributes to the haunting sensation. The wind whistling through collapsed buildings, the creaking of old timbers, and the rustling of overgrown weeds all add to the impression that the town is alive with residual energy. Shadows are elongated by the uneven terrain, and the forest edges seem to move in rhythm with the imagined steps of invisible residents. Some claim that walking through Calumet feels like stepping back in time, with the past pressing close, almost tangible, as if the town is reliving its former life through those who dare to walk its paths. For those who spend time in the area, the experience is often both unsettling and awe-inspiring. The stories of ghostly miners, mysterious lights, and residual echoes create a haunting narrative that lingers long after leaving the site. Visitors leave Calumet Ghost Town, carrying the sensation that they have touched a piece of history still alive in a spectral form. It is a place where memory, legend, and the supernatural intertwine, offering a rare and chilling glimpse into the enduring presence of the past. Calumet Ghost Town stands today as a testament not only to Minnesota's industrial heritage, but also to the persistence of the human spirit, both living and departed. The ruins, the mine shafts, and the whispering woods together create an atmosphere where history is palpable, and where the echoes of miners and residents, long gone, continue to walk among the living. For those who entered this abandoned settlement, it is a reminder that some stories are never truly finished. and some lives never fully leave the world they once inhabited. The ghosts of Calumet linger, waiting, watching, and reminding all who visit that history. Pain and memory are often inseparable from the land itself. St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota, is renowned for its academic excellence, tight-knit community, and stunning campus architecture. But beneath the ivy-covered walls and sprawling quads lies a history steeped in stories that chill even the most skeptical. Over the decades, students, faculty, and visitors have reported a range of paranormal occurrences, from shadowy figures gliding through hallways to unexplained sounds echoing across empty classrooms. The college, with its mix of old stone buildings and historic charm, seems to attract spirits unwilling more, perhaps unable to leave. One of the most frequently reported entities is the mysterious woman in white. Students and nighttime security personnel describe seeing her drifting across campus, often near the older dormitories. She appears ethereal, dressed in a flowing white gown that seems to ripple even when there is no breeze. Witnesses report a sense of calm mingled with unease when encountering her, as if she exists somewhere between this world and the next. Some believe she is tied to an early tragedy on campus, a student or faculty member whose life ended prematurely, though the exact details have been lost to time. Regardless, her presence is a persistent and haunting reminder that the campus holds memories that refuse to fade. Dormitories are also frequent sites of paranormal activity. Students in older halls have reported hearing footsteps in empty corridors, doors opening and closing on their own, and soft whispers that vanish when approached. In some cases, multiple residents have independently reported similar experiences, suggesting that these occurrences are not merely the product of imagination or the creaking of old buildings. Some claim to have felt a sudden chill in a warm room, as though an unseen presence had passed nearby, leaving the air heavy with its lingering energy. The music hall, particularly the piano in the main recital room, has a reputation that is both eerie and mesmerizing. According to numerous accounts, the piano will play itself late at night, usually after the campus has grown quiet. The notes are often coherent, simple melodies or classical pieces, but there is never anyone visible at the keyboard. Security staff who have investigated the room often find it completely empty, yet the sound persists. Some students swear the music carries a distinct emotion, sometimes sorrowful, other times urgent, as if the unseen player is trying to communicate something long forgotten. Paranormal enthusiasts who have visited the site suggest that the piano may be an instrument through which the woman in white or another spirit manifests, continuing to perform even after death. Libraries and study halls are not immune to the supernatural as well. People working late into the night often report hearing footsteps echoing across empty reading rooms. Books sometimes fall from shelves for no apparent reason, and shadows appear in the corners of rooms where there is no light. Some claim to have glimpsed fleeting figures in old photographs or mirrors that do not match anyone present. The atmosphere in these spaces can shift suddenly, from calm and quiet to oppressively heavy, as if the weight of long past lives presses upon the present. Campus outdoor spaces have their own eerie tales. Students walking alone at night have reported fleeting glimpses of figures between the trees lining walkways, disappearing when approached. Some describe a sensation of being watched, with the feeling intensifying in areas near historic buildings or older stone staircases. A few have claimed to hear soft singing drifting through the air, though no choir or individual is in sight. These incidents, combined with the indoor hauntings, suggest that the paranormal presence at St. Olaf is widespread, touching both the natural and constructed environment of the campus. Faculty and staff, too, have experienced inexplicable events. Professors have described seeing shadows in lecture halls long after the last class has ended. Custodial staff report doors that open and close on their own, light fixtures flickering without cause, and objects moving slightly across counters or desks. Even routine maintenance workers have recounted encounters that left them uneasy, tools shifting positions, strange drafts, or the sensation of being gently but insistently guided in a particular direction. The consistency of these accounts over decades has contributed to a campus-wide belief that St. Olaf is more than a place of learning. It is a site where the past remains tangibly present. Despite or perhaps because of these stories, students and visitors often feel a mix of fear and fascination. The campus's historical buildings, some dating back over a century, create a perfect backdrop for ghostly encounters. The stone walls, narrow hallways, and echoing staircases amplify sounds, making even minor creaks or footsteps feel supernatural. The stories have become an integral part of campus culture, passed down from class to class, adding a layer of mystery and intrigue to life at St. Olaf. Paranormal investigations at the college have recorded strange phenomena, including unexplained noises, temperature fluctuations, and faint, indistinct voices captured on audio equipment. While skeptics may attribute these experiences to natural causes, the settling of old buildings, wind through open windows, or the human imagination, the sheer volume and consistency of reports suggest that something more might linger. The woman in white, the piano that plays itself, and the shadowy figures all form a tapestry of haunting that makes St. Olaf College one of Minnesota's most fascinating haunted sites. In the end, St. Olaf College is a place where history and the supernatural intertwine. Students attend classes, study late into the night, and walk across campus, perhaps aware or sometimes unaware that they share the space with lingering spirits. These apparitions, whether manifestations of unresolved tragedy, echoes of past lives, or something else entirely, remind everyone who walks the grounds that some stories never truly end. The woman in white, the phantom piano, and the shadowed corridors serve as constant whispers from the past, compelling students and visitors alike to remember that the past is never far away, and sometimes it refuses to leave. Minneapolis City Hall, with its soaring clock tower and grand stone facade, stands as a testament to the city's history. But behind its impressive exterior lies a darker side that few dare to speak of. Constructed in the late 19th century, the building has witnessed countless trials, political battles, and tragedies that have left an indelible mark on its halls. Over the years, staff, visitors, and paranormal enthusiasts have reported eerie experiences that suggest the building is far from empty, and that some of its former occupants may have never truly left. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves the sound of footsteps echoing through corridors that should be empty. Security personnel working late into the night often recount hearing the distinct cadence of boots against marble or wood, pacing back and forth in offices and hallways where no one is present. The steps sometimes stop abruptly, only to begin again in a different part of the building, creating an unsettling sense that an invisible presence is moving about, observing. Employees have reported following the sounds, only to find the corridors completely deserted, the air heavy and still, leaving them questioning whether they had heard reality or something beyond it. Typewriters, a relic of the early 20th century, when clerks labored over countless documents, have also been at the center of ghost stories. Staff have claimed that, even in the absence of power, typewriters click and clack, letters appearing on paper, despite no one touching the keys. Some speculate these are echoes of the countless hours of paperwork and bureaucracy that once dominated the building. Residual energy replaying itself for those sensitive enough to perceive it. Others whisper that the spirits of former clerks, condemned to repeat their duties for eternity, are the source of these unexplainable noises. Perhaps the most chilling legend tied to Minneapolis City Hall is that of a man executed within its walls in the building's early days as a courthouse. Local lore suggests he was a convicted criminal whose final moments were filled with rage and despair. Witnesses over the decades have reported feeling sudden, inexplicable cold drafts in certain parts of the building, often accompanied by an overwhelming sense of unease. Some have seen a shadowy figure lingering near the council chambers or along hallways, pausing to stare before vanishing when approached. It is said that his spirit, bound by injustice or unfinished business, continues to wander the halls, restless and unrelenting. Council chambers themselves have not been immune to the city's paranormal activity. People working late or attending evening meetings have reported ghostly laughter echoing from corners of the room, even when the chamber is completely empty. Doors sometimes swing open or shut with force. Papers slide across desks, and chairs rock slightly as if an invisible hand has brushed against them. The combination of old wood, high ceilings, and the residual tension of long-past disputes seems to amplify these experiences, making the chambers a focal point for supernatural reports. The massive clock tower that defines the building's exterior also holds its share of stories. Visitors and employees alike describe sudden chills when standing near the base, a sensation of being observed even when no one else is around. Some have glimpsed fleeting apparitions high in the tower, shadows moving against the framework of the ancient clock, or a figure peering from the windows as though surveying the city below. These sightings are often accompanied by a low, rumbling hum or the sensation of wind that has no source, reinforcing the building's reputation as a place where the boundary between the living and the dead is thin. Even the stairwells are said to be haunted. Staff ascending or descending late at night report feeling unseen hands graze their shoulders or a sudden urge to stop and turn around, as though someone or something is watching. Others have heard whispers, indistinct and urgent, that fade as quickly as they arrive. For those who have encountered these phenomena firsthand, the experience is simultaneously fascinating and terrifying, leaving them with a sense that Minneapolis City Hall is alive in ways most cannot explain. Paranormal investigators have visited the building numerous times, capturing unexplained electromagnetic fluctuations, cold spots, and audio anomalies that resemble voices or footsteps. While skeptics argue that the age of the building, the acoustics of its vast halls, or drafts are to blame, the consistency of reports across decades has made the City Hall a staple in Minnesota's haunted locations. Those who enter are often left with the unnerving sensation that the building remembers every trial, every death, and every moment of human emotion that has passed through its walls. Despite or perhaps because of its supernatural reputation, Minneapolis City Hall remains a hub of activity and governance. Meetings, court sessions, and city offices continue to operate as usual, yet the stories persist. Employees and visitors share whispered warnings of strange occurrences, advising newcomers to pay attention to sudden chills, unexplained sounds, and shadowy figures. Many learn to coexist with the oddities, treating them as part of the building's character, while others remain deeply unsettled by the encounters. In the end, Minneapolis City Hall is more than a historic landmark. It is a repository of memory, emotion, and perhaps lingering spirits. From the echoing footsteps in empty halls to the ghostly laughter in council chambers and the apparitions glimpsed in the clock tower, the building serves as a reminder that history is never truly gone. The stories, chills, and sightings collectively weave a narrative of a place where the past reaches out to the present, leaving all who enter to wonder how much of what they see and hear is real and how much belongs to the ghosts of Minneapolis' past. And so we reach the end of our journey through Minnesota's shadows. 25 places where the living and the dead seem to cross paths. From abandoned hospitals to haunted hotels. From lonely bridges to restless theaters. Minnesota proves that the land of 10,000 lakes is also the land of 10,000 ghosts. What's most unsettling isn't just the legends. It's how close they are. A place where you've walked before. A trail you've hiked. A building you've passed without a second thought. Each could hold a story of despair, tragedy, and spirits that refuse to rest. If you ever find yourself near one of these locations, take a moment to listen, to watch, to feel. That sudden chill, that flickering light, that whisper in your ear. It might not be your imagination. It might be Minnesota's ghosts reminding you they're still here. Thank you for joining me on this haunted tour of Minnesota. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with fellow seekers of the strange. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, And remember, sometimes the scariest things aren't in your nightmares. They're waiting in the world just outside your door.